Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show, a very special show. This is a special episode of Talking Seahawks with the Hawks Nest or the BNB Show. We're doing things a little bit differently tonight. So, to those of you who are here, I hope you're excited to hear all about what is going on in college football so far this year. Me and Brandon are going to break it all down for you. So, Brandon, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. I love these kind of shows, so I'm all
Mm-hmm.
in.
Right. So, there's a tiny bit of housekeeping, just real quick before we get into the draft stuff. Cody Thompson was released earlier today. So we now have an open roster spot that is yet to be filled. We now have 4 receivers active. So maybe bringing in Tavon, maybe.
Last minute signing of Tavon before game time. Give the Giants the ultimate curveball there. Let's see it.
Absolutely. But other than that, everything's kind of as normal. So I think we're just going to kind of get underway here pretty quickly going into this college football stuff. And here's the way this is going to work tonight. The plan is every month, me and Brandon are going to check in and see how the intriguing prospects of the 2024 NFL draft are looking for the Seahawks. So you get about a month's worth of data. That's about 4 games for each team most of the time. Good opportunity to see if your priors are being confirmed or maybe if they're being called into question. So I've done a lot of looking into college football stuff so far this year. I know Brandon's been looking into stuff as well. So we're starting to get a little bit of an idea of what's going on here. We don't have the full picture yet, but we're starting to get a picture.
Yeah, I think it's good to do this because it from our perspective and looking at it, it gives you that really nice perspective that you don't really get as much, I think, when you go through the prospects, Brendan, at the end and you're trying to compile all the tape at once. You can feel a little bit more of the ebbs of flows as you go through to look at these guys throughout the season, as opposed to trying to kind of cram it all in. And you definitely feel that here as we go through this sort of, I guess, quarter turn of the season with college football.
So we're going to keep things to specific positions. Like I'm not going to sit here and spend 20 minutes talking about running backs when are we going to take a running back before the 6th round? Probably not.
No, maybe fifth, but nothing before there, I would say.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about wide receivers when we already have this incredible selection of wide receivers to choose from as is? I don't think so. Are we going to talk about tackles when our tackle position seems pretty dang solid right now? I don't think so. We're going to keep it to the positions of potential interest, significant interest to the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm. I think
Okay.
that makes the most sense because we want to try to narrow in as well as we can. I'm with you, Ryan. I just can't see the running backs early.
Yeah.
Later round guys, we'll have time to look at those, but nothing at the top.
Yeah. Well, one thing about running backs though, we got to get Frank Gore's kid. He's going to be in the draft this year. We got to get Frank Gore's kid because Frank Gore used to be a problem for us, and I don't need his kid being a problem for us. The only way to prevent that is to make sure he's on our team. I'll say
Yeah.
that.
Oh Lord, can you imagine him going back to San Francisco and having to see the Gore on the back of the jersey again, running right up through the A gap all day long?
Yeah. I don't need that. I don't need that. He's I'm not kidding, by the way. Frank Gore's kid is at South Mississippi. I think it's Southern Mississippi. Doing pretty good actually. It seems like so. We should definitely get him to nip that in the bud.
Yeah. Well, just keep him away from San Francisco minimum. He can come be our 4th running back on the roster.
All right. So let's start the conversation up with everyone's favorite quarterbacks. Everybody loves the quarterback position. Quarterback position's fun. It's sexy, especially this year. It's an incredible crop. And unlike last year, I don't feel like the crop is looking worse with each week that goes by. Last year, a lot of guys just fell and fell and fell. And by the end of the year, you weren't even that interested. This year, I feel like it's the opposite. We're starting to get more guys that look good.
Yeah, it's been and not only I think last year, Brendan, I think you would say too, wouldn't you? Like maybe even the last 2 or 3 years collectively, where guys have at the most maybe just kind of treaded water from where they were the previous season to the year that they were going to go into the draft. And here now along the lines, to your point, I mean, we could, I think, easily come up with a list of a minimum 10 guys who have stepped forward in their game and have looked better. We're not gonna go that deep on it, but we'll get through all those guys eventually through this year. But that's impressive, and it's so good for our Hawks because the thing I go to in my mind is we kind of see the blueprint being reapplied here from the early 2010s, and what made you a championship team is that you might be primed and prepped in the same timeline for getting that quarterback in what could be the 2nd, 3rd round range, maybe even 1st round, but in that range now. it's all kind of set up right to be able to do that if you want to. Not that it pushes Geno off, but then you have the cheap backup behind that's still very talented that maybe could be your quarterback of the future too.
Yeah, and even if you like Geno, Drew Lock is a free agent next
Mm-hmm.
year. So you might lose him even if you want to keep him. He might say, "No, I got to spread my wings. I got to go
Yeah,
somewhere that'll give me a chance to start." That's possible.
very possible. It's very, very possible. So I think you got to be smart. But plus, it is $4 million a year right now with $3 million of incentives to have Lock on the roster. And so to have that as a third round quarterback, for instance, like you had in the Russell days, that takes that down to like $700,000 on next year's cap. So there's a little bit of savings there too.
All right, so quarterback, we're not really going to talk about Caleb Williams because we've already won 2 games, which is probably too many to get Caleb already. So I think we can just cross that one off. Don't worry, it's not because we don't think he's awesome. He's awesome. He's having an incredible year. He's doing everything that we wanted him to do. I don't think us not talking about him is an indictment of him. It's just life is too short, right?
Yeah, agreed. I just like, let's not consider the impossible.
Also, we can't really talk about Shadur Sanders because Dion has already said my boy's coming back for another year in college football. Apparently, he can make more money in college football next year than he will, even if he goes number 1 overall. It's like I think 10 million next year he can make potentially because Colorado's become such a big brand, and he won't make that money in his first year, even if he's the number 1 pick. So there's really no point in him coming out.
I got a theory, by the way. What do you think? Dion's going to have him come back next year, have a good, successful year, right? He'll have the NIL money kicking in Colorado. He'll probably have a really good squad the next year with his kid as a senior. Then whoever the NFL team is that's then drafting Shadur, he'll go to and be the head coach for, right? Like if he's the number 1, he'll say, hey, well, it'll be a package deal.
I don't know if Dion's thing works in the NFL as well. Like I think that works really well in college.
I don't know, man. I think his star is going to be on the rise on this with what he's done with the Colorado program and what he's done there to put. And I know the NIL stuff affects this and all that, but to get them to where they're at now versus where they were as a program, and I mean that they were as a low in a state that program has just been probably in 50 years, legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's dialed it back around in a major way. I think if he came back to back years, remember with this too, it's also he goes out next year and pushes them into top 10, top 5 state of things. I think at that point, his star would be bright enough for somebody out there in the NFL to come a call. And especially considering, Brendon, coaching options right now aren't exactly what we would call thick across the league.
That's true. That's true. That being said, I do want to ask, what do you think of Shadur as a potential NFL prospect based off what we've seen?
I've been tremendously impressed with him. Toughness in the pocket, an ability to throw off platform and still deliver the ball with velocity. He stays on top of his throws with his arm. He's a guy that's very much got clean fundamentals and mechanics. He's the kind of guy that would be like a son of a former pro who has access to the quarterback trainers and guys that can make sure that from very early on to now where he's at, he's mechanically very sound. So I love what he's working with. He's got the mobility and he's got the suddenness to him that you would love to have in quarterbacks in this era. It isn't like Lamar-like, but it's also very, very, very good. And he throws with a lot of power and accuracy on his throws. Decision-making a little bit, but the other thing is that part of that whole changeover here with Colorado program is that offensive line is just horrific. So, he's under so much duress back there, yet excelling within it. Part of what also really impresses me about him.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. There's a lot to like there. The only thing is the clock in his head is kind of broken. It's not where it needs to be quite yet. I do think that he'll look a lot better when Colorado gets a real offensive line because their offensive line right now is a bunch of 1-stars.
Yeah.
Next year they'll probably fix that, but the only thing that I've noticed in the negative about Shadur is just the clock in his head. Sometimes he holds onto the ball too long, but everything else I'm seeing it with him. So going to be very interesting. Right now, him and probably Cade Klubnik are the most interesting 2025 QBs. There are going to be a lot of other guys, of course, but those 2 guys are going to be up there.
Cade Klubnik. I haven't checked him out. Who's he at?
He's a Clemson. He's the young guy.
Yeah. No, okay. I've seen him a little bit. Is he playing right now?
Yeah. He's playing. Okay. He's playing okay.
Clemson's
offense has been better than we thought it was going to be.
I have seen him for a couple of snaps out there, so I hadn't put the name together with it, but yeah, he's looked okay for them. That Shipley kid's He's a little, you know what I mean? He's one of those little jitterbug guys, isn't he? Just like dipping and dodging. Another one of those little Sproles, guy that went to the Cowboys types. He's probably a little taller, but not by
Yeah.
much.
All right. So hopefully in a year, we're still doing this show and we have the opportunity to really dig into Shadur because he's going to be really interesting next year.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely in contention for number one spot at that point if he waits that long.
All right. So the quarterbacks I want to focus on, and we're just going to try to keep it to guys that are moving up in our eyes or moving down in our eyes. So here's my first guy that I think is kind of moving up in terms of my perception of him. It's Quinn Ewers of the Texas Longhorns. Last year, he was a handoff machine. He was like Jimmy Garoppolo. He just gave the ball to Bijan, he gave the ball to Roshan, and watched them do their thing. This year, his completion percentage is up. His numbers are up. He's being asked to do more. He's gotten rid of the turnovers. He went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, although maybe Bama's just not that good this year. Their defense is still pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think that's still legit. That's still legit.
Yeah. He made NFL throws. He was throwing it deep on that Alabama secondary. He was hitting deep shots down the field. He's got his mobility seems like it's come up a bit from where it was last year as well. He's showing that at least a little bit. So yeah, Quinn Ewers is I'm starting to see why preseason had him with a first round grade.
Yeah, I went back in and have watched him. I'm still a little bit slow to warm up on him fully. I can't deny what he did in the Alabama game where, he was prescient and he was so good in what he was pulling off. But at the same point in time, though, like some of those deep throws with him, it's, it becomes like everything's kind of a touch throw. Everything's kind of just got this, I'm going to sort of have to loop it up and over the top. There's not this point where I ever feel the kind of the velocity or arm strength coming off of him. It starts to feel a little bit like, at times where you get like, to me, a little bit of Tyler Van Dyke, where it's just, you're just trying to kind of get it into that perfect right spot. And the accuracy is great. And it helps them in their throwing manner in that style to really allow them to put the ball right in the spot, even on deep throws. But I don't know if it allows him to make a deep throw of like 55 yards. I think it allows him to make a deep throw of like 45 yards, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
And the mobility, while improved with his 20 pounds of lost weight this offseason, is still not particularly good, especially considering some of the other quarterbacks that are available in this draft. He's still not a guy getting away from anybody. He's not going to do much in the open field. If he sees a hole he can scramble through, he'll take it and get up the field and go go make it. I love his decision making and accuracy stuff you just talked about a little bit. That certainly has been good, but I'm still a little bit slow to warm up on this kid because I don't see the plus arm strength really, and I don't see anything I don't see special accuracy without the that lack of that. So has me a little unsure with it.
Yeah, I'm definitely not elevating him to like the Caleb or even Drake May tier, of course, but I'm starting to see it. I'll put it that way because this guy kind of got off to a rough start in his college career. He was a big time recruit, and I think he went to Ohio State and he never played, and then he just went to Texas. So he got off to a rough start, but I think he is trending in the right direction here. I think I like his arm a little bit more than you do. I know it's not Joe Milton. It's certainly no Joe Milton. But I do think his arm is pretty decent.
One last little thing to watch for with him that also bugs me is the feet in the ground. He's a like 1 foot throw. Like JT O'Sullivan often points to this, like, I want both feet in the ground when you're making your throw. And he's often got one little foot up like a ballerina does. And then the secondary part you usually like to have is the guy tracking his front foot forward to the throwing target. So, where you put that front foot is where you're throwing the football. And really often that it's like we talk about Garoppolo, you just mentioned Garoppolo. It's like that front shoulder opening up thing too prematurely, where he starts to get up on that front foot with the tiptoe, shoulder throw opens up. And now, like with Garoppolo, the accuracy is really nice on those short throws, but then he starts to cost himself on the velocity factor when you kind of do it that way versus what I think is more wanted from the fundamental approach there.
Yeah, that was the Trubisky thing, right? That's what Trubisky would do. He wouldn't have both his feet on the ground when he threw.
He was a fallback guy, so it was back foot. With Garoppolo, I'll give him this. It's a purposeful thing. With Trubisky, it was, dear God, look at these big human beings coming at me. I've got to get away from them. Let me just make sure I don't get hit when I throw. That was where all that was that, maybe you don't have So I know that Bears line wasn't great. Don't get me wrong, but maybe some of the toughness factor wasn't there. But with this, it's more of if I open up this, it's why I call them dart thrower quarterbacks, because it's like when you're you're throwing the dart, your shoulders are front and open up, and you're throwing it like this. Whereas if I'm a quarterback, it's this snapping across, and there's a real difference in the way that throwing motion goes. So when he opens, he can dart it in, and he can, even on those deep throws, he can sit back and go boom, boom, and loop it up over, and it's just and he can just put him. But you are robbing some of yourself. And in the NFL, there's times you've got to put that ball in there. You got to lace it in there, where you can't always just kind of dart throw it in with a little bit of that, and it doesn't work. So it's the part that has me still a little bit down on him.
Yeah. I can definitely see that, but for whatever it's worth, we may end up having to talk ourselves into this guy, because apparently Schneider likes him a lot. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, I know, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, there's no guarantee he'll even be there when we pick. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, he might end up being a top 15 guy, and there's no opportunity to get him.
It's very true. It's very true. I think that he's going to be other people will like him a lot too, because he is improving this year. You got to give him that. I will tip him the cap that it is improved this year, but like you said, he was also not coming from a place of Penix in his production last year. He was coming from a place of, handing the ball off to those two NFL running backs that he had in the backfield.
Right. Next guy who I feel like has been impressive over the first few games is Riley Leonard of the Duke Blue Devils. So not a big school. And what that actually creates is an interesting effect where you don't play 4 cupcakes to start the season. Like, some of these quarterbacks are just eating against awful teams. But Riley Leonard actually had to play Clemson's defense already. They had to play a couple of other pretty decent teams. Duke was not a powerhouse. And Riley Leonard, his passing numbers are pretty good. He's been efficient, not really explosive, but he's also really emerged as a great dual threat. He may run for 1,000 yards this year. He's doing a lot of work on the ground, and Duke is undefeated, and their offense is a big reason why. Granted, he's supported by a really good rushing attack. Duke is running the ball great, just even outside of what Riley Leonard's doing, but I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing from the Duke guy.
I do too, man. I really do too. I think I got a first little bit of snapshot with Bobo, working with him before Bobo transferred over to UCLA. I think he was there for a little bit back there. Accurate, good size. In fact, I think you can find a lot of similarities between Riley Leonard and Drake May with the old Duke UNC thing, which is kind of funny, with college football. Those guys have a lot of similarities in their skill set. And that opening win out there against Clemson with that defense that's just locked, stocked, and loaded to gills with NFL talent across the board. We can maybe say it's about performance issues with some of the guys out there with Clemson lately in that defensive talent. But nonetheless, that was not a win that was coming easy to him. I think you mentioned that Clemson kid that's starting for quarterback now there, and watching that game was one of the funner college games to watch so far. And they're just going back and forth and going right down to the wire. And that kid happened to make plays and make throws and gutsiness and using his legs when he needed to use his legs. Smart decision-making across the board. Has size, NFL arm, it would appear at first kind of view of things. And as you say as well, he's had to go against some pretty tough competition. We got Northwestern, UConn, and that's much different than, like you say, the cupcake factor, which does come in. A lot of these college programs have frosting all over their face right now after the first 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no Tennessee Chattanoogas. There's no Western Sun, Lafayette, Mississippi, Alabama.
yeah, exactly. Otis Word or Denor Lenore.
or the So yeah, I'm liking what Riley Leonard's doing here. He is starting to show up in the first round of some mocks. Overall, though, he's still considered to be like a second or third rounder. I'm wondering if he can push himself up here and become one of those top 5 QBs in this draft.
I think he's going to test really well. I know that, May has maybe had a little bit of a softening / kind of been right where he's been. Some people are having a little bit of a downturn on him, but I think with both those two guys, they're going to test good. They're going to have good size, good weight numbers. They're going to throw the ball well at the combine. They're going to run really fast for their size. And I think that's really going to help them when we go through that draft valuation process, when we talk about the thing that can push him, just nuzzle him up over into the first round discussion. But I think he's also, earning it with how he's shown so far. And he's not just I think he's been there now a couple years and going. So he's had a little bit of time back there to roll. So yeah.
Yeah,
I think
he's been their starter this is now his third year.
right.
And his numbers have drastically, although he barely played in 2021. He was like I think he was the guy who came off the bench and like ran gadget stuff because he was a good runner. And he's developed into a full-blown NFL quarterback, I think, really well.
Yeah. I think he's got the looks and the makings of it, at least. I don't see a like top end first round thing. And I still would say that, a guy like for me, Penix on all these guys is still a higher guy I would put hold than these guys. But maybe the back end of the first round kind of guy right now is certainly I think again, Riley, he's in contention for that.
Okay, so real quick here, we got super chat. DJ Jimenez Jr. Thank you for the $4.99. We need another long snapper. JK, you guys do great work. Keep it up. Well, thank you, DJ.
Can never have too many long snappers, DJ.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris Stoll, by the way. No bad snaps, no problems, no nothing so far.
Yeah. How about that? That's big. I mean, that's something sometimes that can be a rocky road if you lose one guy. You don't appreciate them until they're gone.
Right. Okay, third guy I want to talk about here is a guy we did not even mention a month ago. He was not even on our watch list, and he's promoted himself to the watch list by playing pretty impressively through 4 games. It's Jaden Daniels of LSU. He's kind of motored into the Heisman conversation. I don't think anybody's beating Caleb, but if somebody would, this guy's off to a great start, along with a guy like Penix. 12 touchdowns, 1,300 yards, 73% completion almost. He's running the ball effectively as well. He uses his legs. Great dual threat quarterback. I doubted before the season started that he was going to be an NFL kind of quarterback because there's a difference, right? There are guys who are just going to be really good in college, but they get to the NFL and they can't hack it. I still think he's a little bit small, but he's got a real NFL arm. He's hitting some deep shots. He's taking shots down the field, starting to show that he does at least have maybe an NFL arm. So there's something here. I don't know if I love it, but I certainly like it more than I did before the season started.
Agreed. I think that that's a pretty fair assessment and about the same place that I find myself on him in full. I do think he's gained a little bit of weight as he needed to because this was the guy, folks, last year who Jalen Carter lifted up with one arm and then lifted his other arm up triumphantly with the number 1. So he's not that wasn't the heaviest of sandbags out there necessarily. And so he's come back with a little bit more weight. He does have a pretty nice little snappy delivery. And I think that what thing that stood out to me this year, and I think you were intimating about it a little bit, which was the improved arm strength. There is a little bit more velocity, it seems like, on his throws this year. He is in a bit more of that offense that's along the line of highly just get the ball out of the guy's hands. It feels like, really not a lot even when he's making the deep throws, it's almost like a deep throw and a 3-step drop. You just about feel like in the way that the offense runs with that kind of speed and quickness, it always just trying to just get out. But he has made some really nice throws. I still think you're right though on your final conclusion there that I'm not sure that he's quite gotten himself into a state we could talk about as a second, third round kind of cat. I think, 4th round and onwards would look like his trajectory at the moment to me. But man, Florida State, Mississippi State, Arkansas, he's played really well against some very tough competition here early on to begin things. So maybe not to be undersold on that too.
Yeah. I mean, as of right now, this is a day 3 guy, but that's better than what I thought before the season started when he wasn't on my radar at all. So
yeah,
again, it's stock up. It's not our favorite guys necessarily.
Yeah. And certainly a guy that could be in line for something that we look at. Definitely, with the improved arm strength now, I think that definitely puts him in line a little bit better in that spot of things.
Okay. My final stock up guy is a local favorite. People are going to get excited for this one.
Ooh, look out.
Yeah. Some people are going to get up for this one. It's Cameron Ward
of
Washington State.
Hell
Through
yeah.
4 games, Wazoo is 4-0, and they've played at least one good team in Oregon State. So it's not just a cakewalk. His numbers are up there. He's got no turnovers through 4 games, 13 touchdowns, 1,400 yards. He's showing off some stuff with his legs that he didn't really have last year. Last year, he was kind of almost like a power runner. He just would run for like the tough 1 or 2 yards. This year, he's actually running forward for more significant yardage. he's really improved in pretty much every area, I think. So we have an NFL quarterback here for sure.
For sure. And of these other guys that we've talked about so far, Ward for me is the guy that I think I like the best right now. And maybe it's my Washington bias seeping through here, Brendon. But I mean, Penix is still, I would have put a little bit higher, but what he's doing and how he's doing at the start of the season. I mean, let's just take Colorado State to start the first year, 37 of 49. 70, almost 76% completion percentage in that game. He's carrying a 75% completion percentage for the year, 13 touchdowns, no interceptions, almost 1,400 yards passing through 4 games. It also he has Colorado State and Oregon State on there. So at least, relatively Wisconsin on there. I mean, he's another guy to me that is pushing himself up and maybe entering into that first round discussion of things. The places I like about what I saw from him, you mentioned the mobility, which is nicer to see this year, is more of a part of his game. I think he had that last year, but he's one of those quarterbacks that I'm going to get what I'm going to get done here from the pocket. He trusts his arm. He knows he's got a nice big arm, so he's going to sit back there and let it rip. I like the tightening up of the delivery this year. It doesn't feel as loosey-goosey. It feels more compact, and it feels like the ball is still coming out with a really good amount of velocity when I watch him. His navigation in the pocket, climbing the ladder, moving left to right to kind of just shake a defender coming past him. He's got beyond being mobile down the field, he's got a good feel in the pocket of how to kind of just find his places and where he can go and what he can do. But I love what I see out of him, and another guy that could be on Seattle's radar. I think he's related to, I'm not sure. I heard he's related to Quandre Diggs, so I don't know if they're cousins or something maybe, but
I think that's correct.
I definitely think this guy has been very impressive. And now doing it now for a second straight year, improving upon what he did last year, having a good year last year at WSU, and now putting it down for a second straight year, which is something that's big for NFL evaluators when they're not just the 1-year wonder. They've done it for a couple of seasons.
And you wouldn't exactly call WSU's offense loaded with 5-star talent, would you?
No, you wouldn't. And that's where it's, he's having to carry away that more load. I love what Penix has done. Penix has got some straight dogs to throw to on the outside, and so it is a little bit of a different scale when you don't quite have exactly that, but he's making gutsy throws and he could put it into a tight spot. He can make every NFL throw, I think, with Cam Ward. I really like what I'm seeing from that guy as a second year forward. He's been one of those guys that, in my opinion, has taken not just a step forward, big step forward in what he's done. Between the mobility and the tightening up of his mechanics a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've come a long way from Incarnate Word.
Yeah, we have. Those days are long gone.
I remember watching the Apple Cup last year with him, and obviously the Huskies won, but I came away from that game thinking I really like the way how Cam Ward is maneuvering around in the pocket. I really like the way he's not using his legs to run for yards. He's using his legs to buy time and give himself a chance to make something happen later in the rep. And we're seeing so much of that even more this year. I think he's even last year I was starting to be pretty impressed with what I saw. But yeah, there's something really nice going on here with Cam Ward. I think it's pretty legit.
It's such a little skill, Brendon, because it's one of those ones you don't. Number one, it doesn't always stand out to the average fan really quickly and easily because he took just one step to his left and he threw. What did he do? He just took a step to his left. Yeah, but that step to the left that he took was the same one that gave him the extra half second there to then get the ball off and throw it in. If we want to relate this to what like Gino's doing right now, a lot of what he did with this issues we had with tackles over these last couple of weeks is a little more of I'm going to fall back a bit, and not in the I'm feeling ghost thing. He's doing it purposeful. It's one thing when the guy's doing it going it's another thing when a guy's going okay, pass rush is coming back. Hold on a little bit. And then I'm going to let it go, where he knows the throw he's going to have to make. He can plan on what he's doing there. And that's what you get with Cam is that same thing, whether if I got to take a couple steps up or I'm over here and then the ball is out. And it is the part to look for in his game. That's a part that a lot of quarterbacks really struggle to develop that skill. They'll be bailers, even good, highly mobile guys. They'll just want to always get out and go. And that sometimes is not the proper move when just a simple soft step here or there can save the day.
Right. Okay, so those are my stock up guys. I do have a couple of stock down guys that we can take a look at real quick here. First guy I have is KJ Jefferson of Arkansas. It's not a ton to do with him. It's just more to do with the fact that I really like the way the Seahawks offense is playing right now, and I don't want to completely change it for somebody who plays completely differently than most quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's broadened the completion percentage up a little bit this year, which is what you were hopefully looking for him to do. The interceptions have been rearing their head over the last 2 weeks,
Right?
a little bit more. They,
Yeah. What's happened to his running, by the way? He's having his worst season ever running with the ball. It's he's averaging less than he's averaging 2.7 yards a carry. The last 2 years he's averaged over 4. Something's up there. It seems like he's just not running efficiently the way
I
he used
even
to.
even if you look at his couple of years though, even at 4, like at the college level for a mobile quote unquote quarterback, at being only at 4 yards a carry is kind of low in itself, even below that 2.7. My argument on that would be that, or to be, my take on that would be that he wasn't really all that mobile to begin with. He looks like Cam, and he does
Yeah.
the whole wear the towel and wear the number one thing. So he's trying to look like Cam. And it's
Right.
just that he's not as fast as Cam. He's not as big as Cam. Doesn't have as good an arm and Cam didn't have that good an arm, but like he's got all the inaccuracy stuff without the arm strength at times. And yeah, you're right. You'd have to probably change your offense around to make it accommodate this kid.
Yeah.
He's just never. We've been watching him now for years, man. We've been looking at KJ for years, waiting for him to kind of come forward, and he's not been necessarily. I wouldn't say just bad, but it's just not been
No.
for a guy now going into that third year stretch here where you've started some years now. Like you should be kind of mastering now, and he's got West Carolina and Kent State on the schedule right now with where he is statistically. So yeah,
Right.
I'm a little down on him too as well.
Mhm.
But I think we've kind of always been there a little bit with him.
Yeah, we've been aware of the fact that it would require the Seahawks to be doing so badly they'd want to just completely change their offense, and that's not happening right now. Not at
Right.
all.
Exactly.
The other guy I'm a little down on would be Grayson McCall of Coastal Carolina. He's actually off to the worst start of his career. I think if you look at the numbers, like his completion percentage is down. His efficiency in general, his effectiveness in general is just down. And he's playing for Coastal Carolina. So for him to be impressive, he has to be completely insane with the numbers. And we just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, you come out against UCLA, and that's your litmus test to begin your season. You're going to be playing the next 3 weeks after that Jayville State, Duquesne, and Georgia State. And UCLA kind of holds him up there. He gets 42 attempts, 271 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. The accuracy thing is the surprising thing to me. Quarterbacks typically get more accurate with time in college, not less accurate. And he's already an arm challenged quarterback. He starts losing the accuracy thing. He's going to start losing any kind of the day 3 quarterback prospect thing and get into undrafted for City here really fast, which is where it's moving to a bit. Only 5 touchdown passes on the season through 4 games. I think that, Grayson, another guy that's had a little bit of time and played a good amount of college football, definitely stock down.
Yeah. That's all I had for quarterbacks. Is there anything you want to talk about vis-a-vis college football quarterbacks?
Well, just one more thing on the Michael Penix, because I think you're in more of a state, if I'm not mistaken, of being kind of, rather than stock up or down, he's kind of maintained his stock.
Yeah, last year I felt like he was going to be a high second rounder, and this year I still kind of feel like that's the case.
So if the season ended today and then 3 months from now we were at the draft, do you think he'd be a second rounder as it stands?
I wonder if a team would do the first rounder with him. I personally don't like him like that. I like him a lot, to be sure. There's a lot to like with him, but I do have some reservations that make me not so sure that in this class I need to be spending a first round pick on Penix.
I'm interested in that because I see when I watch the tape on him a little bit this year of improved. I see a smidge more improved arm strength this year. I don't think necessarily he's taken some hugely physically forward, but that it does look like there's a little bit more pop on some of his throws. Do you think that that's inaccurate from your eyes? That it's been more, it's about where it was last year.
I do think the arm strength is up. My thing is, I feel like what he does a lot right now is he just throws it up and knows that his superstar wide receivers are going to go up and get it
That's
because
fair.
they're so much better than the defensive backs they're going up against, especially early in the season when you're playing teams like Cal and Tulsa and, teams like that. And you've
Yeah.
got Jalen McMillan, Romo Dunzy. And by the way, Jalen Polk is starting to get
I
some
was gonna
serious
say,
hype.
yeah,
Yeah.
Polk's right in there. He's that, Yeah, it's almost like the situation back in the early 90s with the running backs where you had, Lewis and Greg Bell, and then, oh, we got this youngster Napoleon Kaufman too. It's like that, but for the receiving core, with
Right.
the top two guys, and then you got this Pope kid, because every time I turn on the tape, he's freaking they're making some insane catches.
Yeah.
All of those Husky receivers are like trying to one up each other. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So I look at that and I go, is that going to work in the NFL? I'm not so sure. The left-handed thing is also kind of weird, although I don't mind that as much as some people do. I know some people that's a big turn off. I'm
I
not
think
there with it.
it's exacerbated by the Phillip Rivers throwing motion at times, because he still gets into that sidearm balls coming from here like you throw a knuckleball in baseball kind of thing. And I think that it just makes it look even more stranger, I think, when it looks like that.
Yeah, and also there's the fact that he has an injury-prone history, which is a big reason why the Huskies have this offensive system where he almost never gets hit. They're
Mm,
like, we can't mess around with that. Just don't
it's
get
fair.
hit. And he's also an older prospect. I think you add all these things together, and it's fair to say first round in this QB class, it's just not necessary.
I think those are all fair points, man. It's all fair points. Okay. Yeah, no, I just want to mainly pick your brain on that. I think we basically covered the quarterbacks that I think have done up or down right now as it stands. Bo Nix, I think, has been very impressive with what he's done
Mm,
so far. He seems to be taking some steps forward as a passer, which he was so
yeah,
rough in back at Auburn. I mean, that was just such the part of his game where it's like, man, this guy just doesn't have any feel for throwing the football. He's just like, he's got an arm, but he doesn't have any way and understanding of how to use it. Like he's got this gift, but he's just like, I don't know what to do with this thing. But he has looked a little bit better out there in Oregon this year, and they
yeah,
certainly look good themselves.
yeah. I'm still getting like Taysom Hill vibes from him, but maybe
Those
by
are
the end of the
fair.
year I'll change my mind.
That's fair, man. He's got to prove it and show that he can do it. Because I think the arm thing for me, when people talk about him being a second round talent, I'm like, I don't. He ain't gonna layer any throws. He's not gonna really throw a lot of touch. Everything's just gonna be, it's a little bit like Levis was last year, where it's like, yeah, it's an NFL arm, but it's just everything's coming in at you at 95 miles an hour, and sometimes you got to throw an off speed pitch. I'm doing baseball
Right.
references because I keep saying it. We got the Mariners tonight. I keep seeing your shirt.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next position that I think the Seahawks should be thinking about heavily right now. It's tight end.
Mm.
Tight end. Um, Disley is in the last year of his deal next year. Fant is a free agent. Parkinson's a free agent. Like, we may end up remaking our entire tight end room this offseason. So I think the fact that we need maybe multiple tight ends next offseason is clearly the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's well, not even one, maybe two.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock me if we need three. Like, Disley could be a cap casualty pretty easily, I think.
We're going to have to create some cap space from somewhere. That part's for
Hmm.
sure.
Okay, so I got some stock up guys here. These are some guys who are impressing me. Like, we're not going to really talk about Brock Bowers here too much because he's another guy who's almost definitely a top 10 pick. And to me, he's just continuing to prove what we already knew about him. He's awesome. He's having a good year so far. He's doing the thing. He's great. Maybe the best tight end prospect ever. But I don't see us having any opportunity to get him.
No, he's not. He's not going to be in play.
Yeah. So this first guy is generally considered to be the second best tight end in this class. And so far, I've been pretty impressed. It's Jatavion Sanders of the Texas Longhorns playing with Quinn. And he's been very explosive this year. He's had 200-yard games. He's averaging 22.3 yards a catch. So he's been a big play threat for that Texas offense that is letting Quinn throw it a little bit more than last year. Last year, it was a lot of short stuff. It was a lot of quick stuff. So we're seeing some more big play threat from Sanders. Seems like he's doing an okay job blocking. I don't really think that's his game, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Jatavion Sanders is showing that at the very least, he belongs in the conversation as a first-round pick.
He might be. He is a complete tight end. He's got fairly good size, 6'4", 240. I think he's a little more H-backy when it all gets said and done than an inline guy. But he's that quintessential tight end H-back type that is really got the wide receiver and slightly a tight end body, but he's completely rocked up. And so he's, like you said, with the blocking, he can give you run blocking or pass blocking and actually passable in both of those two elements. He really does well to absorb contact after the catch or on the catch at the catch point, where he can be jostling around, but he's just so strong and steady in there that his hands are so good that he's going to hold on. He also adjusts his body really well making the catch. He's got those kind of that acrobatic ability to turn back, move back to this way, switch back to that, react to things pretty quickly. Love what he does catching the ball. Love him as an overall player. I think he's probably to me a high second right now as I look at him. But if he goes out there at the combine and runs some 4.45, he does have a lot of burst to him, so he could very well go out there and test really crazily. But he is still down at 240, so he is a little bit in a tiny bit of that tweener phase of things. A bit,
Right.
like I think he's going to go to the combine and he's going to be like 235, and then you go, well, versus having your normal tight end up at right 260, 255, 260-ish, that's the part where I wonder about on him. But a very good player.
Yeah. Like, do you feel like he'll end up playing in the slot a lot like some of these tight ends do?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, and the H-back's okay too, because the H-back's become a fundamental, normal part of every football offense. And so you're okay. You're not on the line of scrimmage. So you're off ball, so you're not getting worried about jams, because with your lighter weight, they're going to try to get their hands on you defensively to disrupt your routes. But there's a place, a little bit of it will also be out there at the slot, too. I mean, hell, you talk about a guy you could eventually flip into being a fullback, and you want to start working in fullback looks like we use with how we put those tight ends in the backfield. I mean, this is the kind of guy that would work well. The basic point coming back to is you're giving him good, clear releases, letting him utilize his burst and get up the football field, because he eats up so much turf so quickly for a man his size. And he's so good. You can throw you can kind of just do the trust tree throws to him, right? He's a very good guy. Just like the guy's not going to pick it off. Whoever goes up there, they're going to do an all they can to just try to keep him from catching the football.
All right. So liking what I see from Sanders, also really liking what I see from this next guy, one of my favorite guys in college football so far this year.
Okay.
I really like this guy. It's Cade Stover of Ohio State. This is, if you need to replace Will Dissly this offseason, this is the guy in the draft who I'm like, this guy could be Will Dissly. He's been a shockingly big part of that passing attack, and it's not easy. It's not easy to take passes away from Marvin Harrison Jr. and what's the other guy's name? Emil Abuka. Right. So it's not easy to make headway as a pass catcher in that offense, but he's averaging over 4 catches a game. He's had a couple of big games already. And he's one of the few guys in this class who stands out to me in any way as a blocker. This is not a good class for blocking tight ends, but this guy, at the very least, I see the potential. He's got the Will Dissly size. He's like 255. He used to play defense, so he's got that, he's got a little bit of a mentality in him. He used to be a linebacker. So I feel like you get something from that you don't get from a guy who's always played offense. I think he's right now better blocking in open space opposed to blocking on the line, but I see the potential for him to get there. So I really like Cade Stover so far.
Yeah, I overall was I liked his tape. I probably wasn't as overwhelmed as or not overwhelmed, but blown away. I do look at him more in a middle territory, tight end I think 4th round onwards as I look at him just on the first onset there. Obviously, I'd like to have more of a view of him. I don't think he's necessarily quick off the line, but he does get up to speed pretty quickly. So he does get the space eaten up fast, which is nice. I think he's really good at the catch point. He's got a weird just knack finding spaces, getting open. He just got for a guy that's been transfer over to that position, Brendon. It's his ability to kind of navigate through coverages and locate those little cracks where he gives his quarterback. I think that's how he gets targeted so much. Is he just finds the crack open to where the quarterback's like, oh, there's my open guy right there. And he's got an innate way of finding it. I also agree with you on the blocking side of it. I think that he is overall a really good blocker, and that's going to be a plus component he brings. More of an inline guy than the guy we just talked about, though this guy could do a little bit of H-back stuff. I think where I ding him a little bit is the quickness, speed, athleticism. This is a guy to me that's not necessarily going to test tremendously well. Maybe on that Ohio State track, he'll run a 4.46 or something, but I think he looks to me more 4.7-ish. And which, I mean, you mentioned Absolutely. Will Dissly. Dissly was not the fastest guy either, right? Wasn't he something?
Dissly was 4.8.
Dissly was so like Dissly's really 4.8. So it's not a down thing to say or put him in his place. And Dissly himself was a 5th round pick with that skill set. So it's just where I kind of see him at the moment. But I do like him. He's a complete player. He's going to make the catch. I don't think he gives you much yak after the catch. I think he gets chopped down for as big a guy as he is. I saw a lot of his tape where he's just getting chopped down very quickly by guys. He hurdled one. If he can learn to do that hurdle move more, he'll be tough to bring down, because he fights after the catch, but those guys just have a way of him not being, they come up and he's thinking they're going to take him head on, and they just take him right out from underneath his legs. And you're like, buddy, that's their only move they're attacking you with. He did it in one of the highlights I saw where he jumped over the top, but he doesn't have a lot of vert. That's the problem too. He's just not.
Yeah. Again, I think the Will Dissly comp is very solid. I think that makes a lot of sense. Dissly is actually showing that he knows how to break tackles a little bit, but in other areas, I think there's a very similar player in here.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Dissly. I liked a little bit more as a blocker. I liked more as a yak, and a little bit more on the catch radius. Like Dissly can reach out and take a ball that's out up here. A lot of the catches with this guy are up on the body, but the comp's still good. The comp is still a good one, more than it's not.
Well, Dissly caught like 4 passes in his college career.
It's true.
If you remember, he was playing on defense, and he just never caught the ball at UW. I think his first game in Seattle, he had more receiving yards than he had his entire career or something. It was weird.
Yeah,
crazy.
I agree. It was strange.
Okay, so these next 2 guys are guys that I didn't even mention when we did this show a month ago. So these guys are kind of popping up on my radar new. First guy is Ben Sinnott of the Kansas State Wildcats. They've actually had a pretty effective offense so far this year. And Ben Sinnott has kind of emerged as the top receiving option on that team. He's on pace for like 800-yard season. And also he's doing some fullback stuff. So he is that kind of player. He lines up at fullback occasionally for them. Little undersized for maybe doing that in the NFL. I think he's 245 right now. So he might slim up and get to 240 by the time he gets to the NFL. But who knows? Maybe he doesn't. Kansas State is running the ball really well also to start the year. And I think Sinnott is part of the reason. I don't think he's an amazing blocker, but I think he's capable at it, more so than a lot of these guys that we look at the tight end spot. So I'm liking what I see from Ben Sinnott so far.
Yeah, I think he's kind of similar to Jatavian in certain respects. They're different kinds of players in what they do, but in kind of what he does at his best, being that at the catch point, they are going to win a lot of times. They're going to, if a ball's in there and it's tight and they got a guy hanging off them or they've got contact hitting them, they will find a way to still make the grab in a kind of a special fashion from what you normally see from tight ends. A lot of guys will just, the second they get jostled or touched, they're going to drop the ball. So these guys are definitely different from that. I also think that he's really athletic, like we saw from Jatavian. He's got a really nice way of, in his releases, getting off of the line of scrimmage smartly. He does a great job of getting skinny off the line, twisting his shoulders, dipping his shoulders, getting away from the physicality where people, teams are going to try to, like say, disrupt those routes. He changed it up on him. He wouldn't always do the same thing, but he always found a way to get himself off the line of scrimmage free and clear, even when he wasn't in that H-back kind of role, even when he was in an inline state. And I think that's really going to help him at the pro level be productive, I think, really fast. As a pass catcher, I have no doubt that he's got NFL skills with those really good hands, good route running, good releases, athletic. I do knock him a little bit more on the blocking. I think he's going to struggle a little bit more on the tape than what I saw from him. But it's not that he's a bad blocker. I just don't think it's going to be necessarily a plus part of what he does. But he has, to me, some similar, a guy like Sam Laporta last year, not the same kind of prospect. Laporta had different skills, but landing into kind of some similar kind of zone of a Laporta in last year's draft to me, where he lands, not the type, just in how he's viewed. I could see something like that for him.
Yeah. By the way, understand that this is more of like a 5th round guy. This is not somebody who I think is going to be a day 2 pick even. Right now, I think he's projected to be like a 5th or 6th round pick. The Seahawks may be in a position where they need to find a tight end in that area of the draft who immediately makes a meaningful contribution, because, you start thinking about, okay, we're going to need a quarterback of the future. We're going to need some defensive linemen. We're going to need linebackers. Suddenly you're down in the 5th or 6th round and you're like, hey, we need a tight end who's ready to play this year because we don't have any anymore. So guys like this are important, even if they're not ever going to be superstars.
Yeah, I mean, and you could do it back like we've seen them do in recent years, where they've done this with corners and running back, where they draft multiple to a position in just one given draft. So this could also be a draft where we see a Cade Stover and Ben Sinnott go, in back-to-back rounds for your Hawks because they need to fill that need, like you say. I think this is likely to be a place they address, and these guys, even in these middle tier reaches, are likely to be guys they target, and they bring something to the table, which is what you're wanting from them. Help to bring us back here. We're not having a huge drop off with the guys we've lost, so that we can maintain these very necessary 2 and 3 tight end sets.
All right. Last guy I'm stock up on. This is another guy that we did not know that I was not really aware of until the season started. It's Benjamin Urosek of Stanford.
Ooh, always killing it with the names, Brendon. Brendon
Yeah.
always killing it with the names.
Yeah, he's 6'5", so I guess he's the shortest Stanford tight end ever.
Yeah,
Like that's actually disappointing for a Stanford tight end.
I know those are baby size.
Yeah. Also 232, so he's unironically pretty light in the pants. He may have to do something about that.
I think it's 220.
Yeah. Really? 220. Okay, that's even worse. But I think he has a role that he can play on an NFL team. He's starting to become a guy who's going to sneak into like the 6th or 7th round, having a nice season so far in a Stanford offense that really doesn't have a lot to speak of. On pace to have the best season, probably the best season he's ever had. Could get up around 700 yards. I'm not crazy about it or something, but you could take him in the same area that you took like who was that one? What was his name? Steven Sullivan. We took him in the 7th round at tight end.
Yeah,
Moved him to defensive end for like one game, and then that was the only time he ever played for us. I think that was a 7th round pick. If you could get a guy like Urosek in the 7th round, I feel like you did okay for yourself. So as far as super sleeper tight ends go, I think this is one of the guys.
I agree with you. I could see him a little bit later on. He's really a good pass catcher. I've got to give him that. He's a mini. You watching the Stanford off? He's like a mini sized Colby, but he's got because he can go up there and catch it high, and he's got a good long big catch radius to him. He moves pretty smoothly in the open field, I think. So he runs pretty good routes because he's hard to kind of get a beat on where he's going, and where he doesn't give you any real good tells. Love how he tracks the ball. There's guys that, they track the ball in flight, especially the ball's 25, 30 yards down the field. And there's guys nuzzled up on them and where's the ball and getting their hands in just the right place or having late hands where it's like, I know where this ball's in, and then put those hands out. He's got a little bit of that to him where he just kind of could track a ball. And if he's got a defender on a hip and it's out in front of him and he can kind of slow up, Tyler does this too, right? Where if it's a deep ball and he'll slow up and kind of run into the back of the guy and then speed back up right at the time the ball's coming down, just at that right moment. And it's a little bit of that this guy does too, that I do like that in him. But like you say, probably a little later on, I don't think he's giving you a lot in the blocking game. He did do a really good job in the Arizona game in that aspect. But other than that, I don't think he's got enough sand in the pants to be able to hold up even as an H-back type blocker at the next level.
Yeah. I mean, Colby was not really a blocker when he came out. I remember thinking like, this guy's never going to be a good blocker, and he's become a pretty good one. So stuff happens, but it doesn't happen all that often, I guess.
Well, and if you're getting him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, you're taking him at that point in a place where you're thinking I can give him a couple of years to add that weight. Colby, I think, came in here at probably 35, and he said he was up to now like 261, I think, this season. So these guys can gain that weight. They can add that. And once he does so, I mean, Colby went from a guy, like you say, I think it's accurate, wasn't that good a blocker in college, has now brought himself up to being above average blocker at the NFL level.
All right, so those are my stock up tight ends. I've got a few stock down guys, a few too many. Unfortunately, some of the supplementary guys in this tight end class aren't really rising to the occasion, I feel like, through the first month.
Yeah.
First guy that I want to talk about here would be Jaheim Bell of Florida State. He's playing with a real quarterback, by the way, down in Florida State. They've got the Doug Flutie guy.
Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis, yeah. And so far, he just hasn't been really productive in the passing game. He's got 10 catches in 4 games. Seems like kind of very much a tertiary target in that passing attack. And I don't believe he's much of a blocker. I don't really think that's going to be part of his game. Now, obviously, Florida State's off to a really good start this season. And some of it is potentially like this guy could break out once they start playing better teams. But honestly, Florida State's already played some pretty decent teams. They played Clemson and actually had to go into overtime to win that game. So it's not like this guy's on the sideline watching in the second half every game. So I don't know. Not crazy about Jaheim Bell right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me was in looking at this season, I was waiting on that Clemson game to see on some of that run blocking to get a little more certainty, and I think I came out of that with a little more certainty on him now, and did diminish his stock. If you look at that number, Brendon, that stands out on him in that Clemson game, the number 8, that would be the number of snaps he had as a run blocker in that
Hmm.
game. And I think
Yeah.
that tells you quite a tale there in itself in a big game like that, that you have this guy only on the field run blocking on 8 snaps. Means that coaching staff does not trust him as a run blocker, and the tape backs this up. He's a get him in space kind of tight end, a yak tight end. And so there's a lot of I got to manufacture stuff for this guy to begin with coming into play here. He's not necessarily like some of these other guys that we've talked about, the stock up guys that are going to go out there and run really nice, crispy routes. Um, He's got stiff hips too. I mean, that's the part why he's not a good route runner. It's why I think sometimes I have a hard time getting open. Is it just everything's very really tightly wound in his hips, and so it's very hard for him to. But yet he's also kind of a creative tackle breaker in his open field moves and whatnot. Just a strange kind of player, but I do think one that is dipping down. And I just don't think he's going to give you anything as a blocker.
Yeah, he's listed at 230 on Sports Reference, which means he's probably like 180, I guess.
Yeah, maybe so on that. Yeah.
So undersized, like for this guy to be worth a second round pick, which is where he was before the season started, he's got to be a big time player in the passing attack, and we haven't really seen that yet.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that would be my first stock down guy. Second would be Brevin Spann-Ford of the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Mhm.
Another guy who just really hasn't produced very much yet. He's kind of been slow out of the gate. I think this might be the guy that you said before the season started, you didn't even know if he should be a tight end or not. It might have been the Syracuse guy, but one of these guys you actually said they should just move him to receiver. But so far, Brevin Spann-Ford has caught 11 passes in 4 games for 63 yards. So it's like a short yardage receiver. So I'm not seeing much to be impressed with yet.
No, and I think it was the Syracuse guy on that. This guy's just a guy I watched a lot of tape last year. We thought he was going to be in the draft, and he had some skills to him. He's got the NFL size to him, and which is nice. I mean, and some legitimate weight to him. But this year, there's just been a complete lack of explosiveness to his game. I mean, just does not separate, and that's why you say I think the catch what, 4 or 5 yards a catch or whatever he's at is so low, is that he just isn't there. The ball skills have been missing, and then even worse, I was watching tape a couple of nights ago on him in the Nebraska game, and he breaks inside, and there were a lot of defenders around him, granted, but the quarterback throws kind of a dot, and he stops his route. And if he continued the route, he was going to have a catch on an in-cutting route, and he just stopped it. And it's a little bit, you watch him as a blocker, there's not a lot of fire, there's not a lot of grit in there, and that for being a guy the size he is, I find him to be pretty unimpressive at this point, and certainly a 5th round guy onward.
Right. And my third and final guy who has kind of disappointed me so far this year at the tight end spot would be Bryson Nesbitt of the UNC Tar Heels. This is a guy who's also playing with a very credible quarterback. This guy's playing with Drake May.
Mhm.
And UNC's gotten in some tough games already this year. They're not just blowing everybody out by 50 points. They're playing real teams. They're getting into fights. So he's had opportunities. And so far, we've got 10 catches for 88 yards in 4 games. I think this is another guy who's not going to be much of a blocker. So you got to be one special pass catcher. So I'm not crazy about what I'm seeing from him so far. There's still time for him to turn it around. I like what he did last year, but right now,
Yeah, I have not much more to add than you do on this. He's certainly got good size. He's big and smooth as a route runner. He can really take people out up the seam, especially when he's good coming into the season. But he's not done any of that this year. No, nothing from you. You don't get anything from him as a run blocker. Kind of slight for the position, in my opinion. Listed to 235, probably 227. I don't as well see a guy that's developed through.
all right. So that's what I had for tight ends. Anything that you would like to maybe toss out there? Anything that you've noticed across college football?
No, I think the guys that we've mentioned on this are pretty much in alignment with who I'm aware of and who's cooking up. So there's probably a couple guys that we've missed, but it hasn't been as good a class overall to me as it might have been with me thinking going into the season. I do like some of these guys like Sanders and stuff, but it has been a tiny bit underwhelming.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a dono from ALG Investments LLC. Thank you for the $4.99. Why can't we play the Broncos this year? We would have scored unlimited amount of touchdowns.
No, it's unlimited.
And Russell chose that team. He could have gone to Philly, and he was like, no. I want Denver.
I got a theory on that.
Yeah. I think we've discussed this before, but it's the money, right?
They weren't going to pay him the contract a year in advance. Roseman's no
Right.
idiot. Roseman's nobody's fool. I think that that's what it came down to, is that he didn't. Otherwise, what would be the reason? What would be the reason that Denver's a bigger market? It's technically closer to Russ's home where he played high school. It's probably the closest NFL franchise to where he played high school. So what's the reason why not? Other than Denver said we'll pay the money now when we bring you on in a trade, and Eagles said we won't, and there was probably competition between those two teams, and it's a no trade clause Russ had. So I'm definitely making some big guesses here, but I would bet dollars to donuts, because why else, Brendon? Think about it. He's got this line in place already there. Kelsey's still there. Lane Johnson's still there. They've got the guard there at that point. Brooks, I think, still there. When we're talking about this point. So like he's got an offense, Jordan Matilla, and he's got an offensive line. The thing they want, he's going to go to this other team that has a significantly worse offensive line, and do so. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, in my opinion, on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually opening up an interesting potential scenario that I didn't think was in the cards, where the Broncos let Russ go because he doesn't fit in with their rebuild at all, because that team needs a rebuild more than any other team in the league.
Yeah,
They need to
agreed.
just rip it all down. But he's still playing well enough to where there's a chance there's a team might say, hey, come here, we'll let you be the starter, and we'll see if we can get anything out of it. Like, I thought that the path was either he gets it going in Denver to where they keep him, or he has to retire. But now there's like this path in the middle where he's not good enough to make Denver a worthwhile team, but he's good enough to some team out there goes, hey, that's what we need. A team like, I don't know, the Raiders.
Yeah,
If
yeah. Well, certainly, because I think I love the fact you picked the Raiders, and the reason being is, number one, that's where a lot of quarterbacks have gone to. No, I'm not going to say that. It's no, I think I
You're
like
right.
the fact. I think I like the fact you picked the Raiders, though, because it is a representatory of a team that, like they did this year, where we're picking top 7. Maybe there could be a quarterback there. We got a lot of this team we got to get fixed, though. We got a lot of this team that have holes and open parts, and that we got to maybe quarterback ain't just maybe the only thing. And having a veteran like Russell to guide you through, they may embrace that in their kind of rebuild in a way that a team like Denver wouldn't, because the Denver's got to so just thoroughly pull everything down, including getting out from under that contract immediately. But I could see it. I think it is a possibility if Russell can continue to, come back to looking, just cognitive and good as a quarterback to a degree, not sensational, but functional. And last year he didn't look functional at times.
Right.
And so that's, I think, the key there.
Yeah. What do you make of him being in the game when they were down 50 points? What do you think of that?
I think Sean doesn't really have a lot of, I mean, I can say what I kind of really think. I mean, which is like, Sean doesn't really have a lot of care whether you take a quarterback out there because you're worried about him getting injured. There's
Yeah.
nothing that I think in what Sean's talked about with Russ that's made me led to believe in establishing. I've long thought this, that he took that job, and part of what caused the holdup on that job was probably the fact that he wanted to make sure that it was very clear that he didn't need to be married to Russ in this, that he would
Right.
take it on and try to fix it, but he was not married. And I think he's given a lot of indications with the quick kiss and baby, stop being a politician talk. I think that that's him kind of, if he gets injured, he gets injured, whatever.
Yeah,
I think there's a little bit of that kind of
right.
mentality at play from Sean right now.
Mhm. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Going to be interesting to see how this ends.
Yeah, it is. And it's not looking like it's going to be good.
All right. We're going to move on to the interior offensive line now. Interior offensive line. Damian Lewis is a free agent at the end of the year. Phil Haynes is a free agent. Evan Brown is a free agent. there's definitely some stuff that could happen here. We may need multiple pieces.
Yeah, agreed. Oh yeah.
Even if you like Anthony Bradford, and Oluwatimi, we're still going to need a left guard in that scenario.
Yeah, I think you're going to be smart to address it. I think either way.
All right, so this first guy who's stock up in my book is one of the PFF darlings so far this year, and a guy that we really liked before the season started. It's Cooper Bebe, or BB, or BB, or I don't know. I'll learn how to pronounce it once we draft him. But he has been the fourth best in guard in college football by PFF. 90.7 pass block grade, 79.5 run block grade. Kansas State's had a really good offense. They're running the ball for almost 200 yards a game. And he is a big reason why. Now, he's playing tackle at KSU, but I believe he will play left guard in the NFL.
Agreed.
So I'm really liking this guy a lot.
Yeah, Bebe gives you a hard time. You pull off the 10-syllable Tongan guys like you're straight. Literally, were born on the island, and then the Bebe throws you off.
Yeah.
Look, this guy, I don't know what to say on this. It's not hard. It's hard to get to being a first round graded prospect guard, left guard. But he is indeed that at this point. I think he's going to be one of the safer picks in this draft as far as his floor goes. I think he's a league average, above average left guard. The second you get him in, he's equal on both. He's equally both great in the pass and as a run blocker. He's an upgrade over what we have right now by a mile. I would absolutely have no issues with if we're picking like 32 in the first round. I have no issues taking Cooper Bebe at that point.
Right.
So he's a complete. The only thing you could wonder is maybe a little bit about, does he check the box for athleticism and what you want in our scheme as far as mobility goes? I would just offer to that every time he's asked to do that in that offense, he gets that job done. And he's playing literally right tackle. So, I mean, if you're wondering about the guy's mobility, like they got him out on the edge right now, and he's holding up out there, and he's dominating as a pass blocker out there. So, yeah, he's there's nothing you can say but other than he's clean, clear, and it's an easy pick on that one.
Yeah. I think his mobility and his agility is better than most interior offensive linemen. I'm not too down on it. We'll see what he does at the combine, though, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been the one questions I've seen put out a line is that maybe he doesn't have, and he gets it done. He does it. It's like a little bit like Oluwatimi, where it's like, he might not test well, but I won't have any worries with it because he just, on the football field, he gets those blocks handled.
Yeah. Better than Damian Lewis.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. You want to see why folks, you want to wonder why the bubble screens haven't worked this year, for instance, so far? Just go pinpoint yourself in on watching on the tape. Go look at Damian Lewis and him trying to get out to those blocks. And that might answer a little bit more of those questions.
Right. Next guy is, I think we talked about him a little bit a month ago, but not a lot. This guy's also playing tackle right now. He's at Arizona. It's Jordan Morgan, also graded pretty well by PFF. Excellent pass protector, decent run blocker. So I think he's starting to kind of move into like that late day 2, early day 3 area of the draft, but he has a chance to ascend to a solid day 2 guy, and I like him.
Yeah, I think he could be a little bit like the Matt Bergeron of this draft. Remember last year, the Syracuse tackle it wasn't exciting, but eventually found his way into the second round, I think, and it probably ends up playing the pros 5 to 8 years. Never going to be probably very great, but just solid. And as a pass protector, he's really good. Outstanding kick step, fluid as hell out there. He can move with any edge rusher, it would seem like at times, with his real light feet. I think the power kind of comes and goes. His run blocking comes and goes. I don't know if he's a real mauler kind of guy in there. I think you've got to keep him at left tackle. I don't think you put him inside. He's going to have enough of that ferocity to him to go in there and really, throw guys around on that inside. That's my worry with him a bit, is that you got to have a bit. It's one thing to have the mobility, but then if you just aren't really a guy to take a guy and be able to drive him off, and that's where he doesn't do enough of that consistently for me on the tape. But he does have skill, and I agree with your assessment. I think he does end up still. It's modern NFL. It's about how you pass protect, and I mean, that's enough to carry the day for you. So
yeah, I think he could cut it at left guard, where you're dealing more with more agile 3 techs most of the time. I think he could be all right.
He might. It was just a couple of snaps in there, more than a few snaps in there, and watch, and weren't just. he's having an edge throttle him back. And if an edge is throttling you back, then I worry about the defensive tackle bending you back like a folding chair.
Hit the weight room.
That's right. Lift them weights, boy. Lift them weights.
All right, my third interior offensive line guy who I think is moving in the right direction is another Duke guy.
Mhm.
Duke is turning into a football powerhouse. What is going on?
Mhm.
What's going on, man? This
I
is
don't
not
know,
right.
man. That education, that's what's going on. They're trying to come away with that diploma.
Yeah. Graham Barton of Duke. So this guy is leading the way for a Duke offense that has run the ball all over everybody they played, including the almighty Clemson Tigers. He is playing tackle for Duke right now, just to make that clear. He's another one of these guys who I think would be an okay tackle, but you bump him inside, you cover up for some of his weaknesses a little bit, and I think he can be even better. He's got a great pass block grade. Run block rate isn't great, but I don't know if I buy that. Watching it, I feel like he's actually doing really well run blocking. And this guy's rapidly becoming a first-round pick on some big boards.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's going to hold if he does have to move to guard at the NFL level, but he's going to be around there, I think.
Agreed. I think your assessment on it is where I stand on it as well, where including what you said about the run blocking, where the grades haven't been good necessarily for him in the run blocking, but the tape actually looks better for me with him doing that. And he is doing it on left tackle. And I think I can see the transition in more to left guard because he's got more of a guard body and he really wins with leverage. So I think the transition to left guard and to get into the leverage win wars, he's going to do that just fine. Like how he moves in space. Sometimes he doesn't keep his feet all the time like I'd like, and that's the part that gets me a little worried with him. But overall, top-notch prospect. I'd probably still keep him in a place of more of second-round place, but he does offer to you that versatility of maybe he can play between left tackle, left guard, and right tackle with what he's done so far. And so that does maybe improve his draft stock just a little bit. But he's really balanced and pass pro. He's got some really good power and strength in his initial hands. And I think he's a guy that I could see definitely still going on the rise.
Yeah, him and Cooper are both starting to dance around that late first round area of a lot of mocks that I've started to see. So it's going to start, if they keep it up, they both got a shot here.
It makes sense. Usually you see one or two guys that go in the back of the first round somewhere in that range. So it makes sense as to where that'll play out, as well. And by the way, I mean, Graham Barton and Riley Leonard. Have you seen any more Duke? That guy goes to Duke. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody in my Discord accidentally called Riley Leonard Riley Reed. So people have been running with that. They keep calling him Riley Reed, which has been really funny. It makes me really want to take him now because people will be doing that for years.
Oh, Lordy.
Okay. I got one guy I moved down on a little bit, just not too crazy about him because this guy was the consensus number one guard in the draft before the season started. It's Donovan Jackson of Ohio State. Not bad, but Ohio State's offense in general has not been all that great so far. And I'm just not seeing anything with him that's all that, I'm not seeing first round pick there. I'm not crazy about it.
I'm not either. He looks the part, but he doesn't really have the mobility we look for, and especially I think he'll probably end up being moved to right guard, quite frankly, at the pro level, because I just don't think he's going to hold up there against twitchy guys at the 3-tech. I wish he showed up with his power a little bit more on tape for as big as he looks. Like he doesn't really, knock guys off the line of scrimmage, and the Notre Dame tape was very unimpressive. Well, I locked in on him throughout the course of this game, and just there wasn't a lot there from what he was showing.
Yeah. That's their first big test because Ohio State seems like every year for the first 2 months they're playing teams they beat 70-0. So you got to lock in on those big matchups, and I wasn't impressed.
No, and in particular, pass protection against Notre Dame, and I don't know that the Notre Dame's got some top end prospect from the inside that's going to just wreck shop at the pro level. He was really bad in pass protection in that game. I mean, he was sometimes whiff. Sometimes he's sitting here and the guy's coming over here and he just leaves the back door open when it's obviously on him to kind of pick it up. He looked a little bit, dare I say, kind of lost a bit in pass pro at times in that Notre Dame game.
Yeah. Ohio State fans keep swearing to me that McCord is terrible and he's the problem for all this, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Maybe. I mean, there's been some offensive linemen that have come through there in recent years that look just fine to me, including last year with DeJuan Jones and Paris Johnson and Luke Wilper, who are all functional and fine. So I mean, I definitely liked all those guys' tape initially a lot more better, and I like what I've seen from him now twice over watching him.
That's all I had for interior offensive linemen. Anything else you would like? Anything else stand out to you?
Nothing as of yet with any guys. I kind of just tried to lock in our list to stay with these guys to make sure I'm with them so far. But these are pretty much what I've seen, what I've heard about. Bebe's certainly getting the hype. The guys you mentioned, Barton getting the hype interior wise. So
Yeah, it's a good crop of interior offensive linemen.
it does look to be really nice. Yeah,
hmm
thankfully so
hmm
too. We need
Which is
that.
why I'm happy we didn't extend Lewis.
Me too. I think that Lewis is a fine player, but there's a difference between a fine player who's a little maybe a smidge above average and a fine player who's actually a fit for what you want to do in your scheme. And Lewis is a little bit of a vestige of the old scheme and what you wanted in linemen back then versus what you want in linemen now.
Mhm. All right. The Snail, thank you for the $2. Russ picked Denver to be associated with Elway and Manning.
I mean, it might be. It might be that.
Yeah. Shallow reasoning, but I mean, some people were saying he didn't want to go to Philly because Sierra didn't want to live in Philly, which seems very shallow, but maybe that is a decision maker for some of these guys. Who knows?
Well, I guess if you have to choose between living in Philly or Denver, I probably would pick Denver too, though.
Yeah, I
If I
would.
had to
Yeah.
pick, so I can't blame him on that. I mean, that could have factored into it as well. I mean, or there could have been many different things, and it just kind of, the other side just kind of went out with the pluses side of it. But if you'd gone to Philly, it would have maybe been the thing. If I'm in Russ's state, that I think he has a valid place to say, like, be in wonderment of in his own view of himself and his career, which is that what would I be like if I actually got a pass protecting offensive line in front of me? If I actually had a line, if I had guys that you give me guys that are 65 and up PFF scores across the board on my offensive line, which I don't think he has ever had in his entire career. And that's not a high water mark. 65 ain't some big, huge, just, like what would he potentially be able to do if he actually had that time?
Well, it depends. It's chicken or the egg, right? Because Ben Powers was, I think, the best pass blocking guard in the league last year. His PFF grade was like 87 or something. It was really good. And this year it's been like 50 something. Like, is that a Denver problem? Is that a Russ problem? Is it a Sean Payton problem? Is it a he was in a contract year problem? Like who do you put that massive downgrade in ability on? Even McGlinchey, as much as he's not really a good pass protector anyway, was better in San Fran than he's been here.
But see, that's one you could see coming. That's where Denver to me is like when you sign McGlinchey, it's like, okay, here's a right tackle, Russ. Here's a right
Yeah.
tackle. And it's like, yeah, but San Francisco's quarterbacks last year led the league in getting the ball out of their hand faster than any quarterbacks in the league. Hence, their tackles, their guards, their centers had to pass protect for the least amount of time of anybody in the NFL. So if they put a good score up, you had to put a bit of an asterisk next to it on that basis, where it's like, it's not necessarily you're beating your man in front of you. It's that the scheme is beating the defense. And that's what's going on here.
Yeah, but still, it's like the Ben Powers thing is really notable because they signed him because he's a great pass protecting guard, and
Mhm.
he's just not been that good this year at all. Like, is that him just, oh, I got my money now, I don't give a crap? Is that Russ holds onto the ball too long? Is
Well, that's
that
a good point.
they're snapping the ball with no time left on the play clock, so the defense gets to jump every snap? Like there was one play against Miami where he snapped it right at the play clock hit zero, so they were able to jump the bubble screen because they knew the
Yeah.
ball was getting snapped right then and ruined the play. I'm starting to notice things like that and wondering if maybe that's a bigger deal than even we thought when he was here.
Yeah, still interesting the Denver game after Peyton's comment. I mean, Russ has now had two legendary coaches between Sean Payton and Carroll in the last year tell him to wear an armband, and he still doesn't wear the armband. I like uh what are we doing here? Like if there I understand if it's Hackett telling you wear the armband and you're like, yeah, you're not gonna have a job in 6 weeks. Shut the hell up. But if it's Sean Payton and Carroll saying, hey, buddy, wear the armband.
Yeah. This yeah, I mean, he has to know that if Denver has to pick between Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, there's no decision to make there. Like, you are not going to outlast Sean Payton here. He will be here after you're gone.
Agreed. Yeah,
Mhm.
agreed. But again, that's where we come back to. Is like, what do you need? Do you need a hammer with the armband attached to it, hitting you over the head to finally wear the thing? Like, what's it going to take here? Because this is, you just told, and I think you're right of this. It was this way last year with the fans in the stadium in week 2, counting out the play clock down because you could not get the plays in because he was not wearing an armband. Like, there's some signs on this that have been long coming to make the change here. You got a whole stadium telling you wear an armband, basically, on top of these coaches.
Yeah. Let's see here. Thaddeus Sexton, thank you for the $4.99. What positions you guys think will be selected by the Seahawks in the 2024 draft with our first 3 picks? You can lead with this one.
I actually think that they're going to lean into value here first, Thaddeus. And that does mean that I think that there is going to be a willingness here to really lean onto their board like they have the last 2 years, first years prior to that, and saying, who's the number 1 guy on our board? I mean, this is what Thaddeus led you to draft Charbonnet in the second round after you took Walker last year in the second round. This was what caused you to take Derek Hall when you already had Uchenna Nwosu on the roster. And by the way, when you drafted him, you knew that you were going to sign Uchenna Nwosu, I'm guessing at that time, to a contract extension that happened not a couple months to a month and a half later.
So you knew you were going to try, at least.
Right. You're going to try. And so you took Hall and still having with Taylor on the roster in addition, and Boye Mafe. And so that would lead you, Thaddeus, if you look at that track record recently, JSN in this draft. You took JSN when you had Tyler Lockett and DK and Eskridge still here, and you felt good about what Tariq Young gave you. You took Witherspoon when you had just gotten Tariq Woolen on one side, and you had Mike Jackson here for another year, and Trey Brown under club control, and Kobe Bryant, who you took in the 4th round last year. So what they've shown you in the last couple of years, Thaddeus, is that they're going to go to value first more than they're going to be driven to the need of the pick. And I would say that that's smart. They've got great drafts out of it, but I also don't think that's changing anytime soon. So to make the prediction about the place they're going to pick, the guys they're going to pick early on, as if they're going to leave that, they'd have to leave value and go to need. Those are your 2 drafting strategies, is you're either going by value board or going by the need. And that would be where they'd start to drift to start to lock in on specifically grabbing players at the top side. I think that the value will be there for defensive tackle and linebacker to give you some kind of answer here, which in general terms will push you in the first 3 rounds to look at those positions because of how strong they will be. So their value will be there on your board. But overall, I think it's hard to predict with the way the team's rolling right now.
I feel like we get a quarterback in the first 2 days. I'll say that. I think a quarterback's going to be in there.
That's a good prediction too. Yeah.
BPA is great, but I don't think we take a running back in the first round. I don't think we take a wide receiver in the first round. I'm sure there is some limit to their BPA strategy. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
I'd add safety to that or corner to that, right? I think that we could, with that, you're right. Some of this is that they're going to definitely have to, do we really want to go another corner here? Like, it's in the second round, even though he's at the highest of our boards. There's going to be maybe a bit more of that this year than the last 2 years in rebuild mode. But I still think that with how much Schneider's talked about it, Brendon, and he's mentioned it at least a half dozen times in the very few interviews that he's given, but every interview that he's done, it's come up just about, which is, why have you had the success? What is it that's brought this success? Going back to the value of our board is what's brought this about. Going back in that way where we had drifted to need too much, we pulled away from that wholeheartedly, and we found a lot of success from within it.
Let's see here. ALG Investment LLC. Thank you for the $4.99. Again, double dono. Our defense looks like they are improving slowly. Thoughts? These Nancys need to play 4 quarters in the preseason and stop being sloppy early season.
Mm-hmm. I love Nancy's. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. It is slowly improving. I wasn't expecting the defense to be great this year, so I don't mind them just being okay, like they were against the Lions and Panthers. So, I mean, a big part of it is just getting Witherspoon on the field. We've seen how he's completely transformed this defense, even with Woolen not being out there.
Yeah. Well said. And yeah, you're right, LG. We got to get these Nancy boys out there during the preseason and get some more game action out there, prep those bodies up a bit more. It's been a long-going problem. We'll see if they can fix it in future years. I certainly think the lack of preseason games, lack of padded practices, lack of physicality in training camps just across the board has caused this issue. And it is kind of a league-wide problem overall in general. Yeah, I think that the defense is taking some slight steps forward. I think they were big steps forward from the first week. The last 2 weeks have been kind of in the same similar place, but there's things to build upon. There's room for growth here. Reinforcements are coming through, and it's a far cry from week one, which was really a horror film where there's never any downtime. It's just basically everybody constantly getting snuffed out throughout the course of the entire game. And so it's a big jump to get to week two and kind of improve that up a bit. And so hallelujah on that one,
Right.
hallelujah.
We got a big one on the line here.
Woo!
Upo with the $50.
Let's go. Let's go, Upo.
That's why Kyle Shanahan is a genius. Low paid QB, mediocre O-line guys requires a QB with an average arm and quick reading. Your money can go to defense, and you need guys that run and yards after the catch, after short catches. Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle, and Ayuk.
Go ahead. No, you hit that one first.
Yeah. I was pretty sad when Shanahan got extended last week. I was kind of hoping that there would be some maybe like a 9 or 8 win season this year because of all the stuff going on over there, and then maybe the Niners would panic and just clean house, which to be clear, I think would be a very stupid move. I think it would be very, very stupid to fire Shanahan, but I was hoping maybe the funny stuff that was happening there this year would cause it, but no.
No, he looks like he's going to be there for I was hoping the same thing because I think he is a very good coach. And I think that though they're not a perfect front office, they make way more decisions than they make wrong. And I think Upo's comment here about at the forefront of what they do most right, which is that you have a plan, you bring your talent in to fit into the exact plan. It's not a general plan. It's not a broad strokes plan. Like Upo kind of says here, Brendon, I got a mediocre offensive line. I'm not going to put as much investments in that. I'll have my left tackle settled up. That'll be where I put a lot of what I want to do. Then I got my like he says, kind of a quarterback that can distribute the ball. They did this with Garoppolo too. Just get it worked around. I will get your first read opened. I will scheme up and make this easier. I'll give you a ground game so you don't have to have a high volume amount of throws. I will do this for you. And then the final part to get those yak guys out there that can catch the ball in space and do something with it, or a guy in Ayuk who, on top of the yak that he gives you, also gives you that very precise route runner who can run those quick routes, get offline fast, and get open, create the separation on the route. And it all works together and flows together. We kind of do that. We've done that on offense. That's the part defensively that I'm looking for us to do. You have a Jamal Adams type. You got a Witherspoon type you brought in here. You got a Julian Love type brought in here. Okay. You've brought your own personnel with some kind of purposeful approach in how you want to apply it. And I don't think that's allowing quarterbacks to throw for 330 yards every single given week, even if you are stopping the run on the other side of that. And so my hope is that we kind of have that same approach, because I think it does bring out about you go plan, you bring your personnel in, and you execute the personnel to the plan. And it all should work together rather than you bring the personnel and you kind of try to slip shot it, right, Brendon? That's what I'm kind of saying on the bad side of this is that you sort of try to, okay, we have a plan, and then we get the personnel, and then we kind of make it up as we go along with the personnel. That's not what Shanahan's doing there. And that's why they've had their success, is that this is much more well thought out, in my opinion. And I think we maybe there's signs we may be doing the same thing defensively. There is with Adams' return and all that, but that's the part that I'm looking for now from our team to also get to that contending status.
Yeah, like it really is kind of the perfect offense for his style of offense, I think. The way he's constructed it. Like even with as good as the Seahawks offense has been for the last year plus now, I don't think Lockett's a great fit for the Waldron offense, but they found a way to make it work around him because he's a good player and he's there and he's got the contract, so they make it work.
Yeah.
But I don't think Lockett is a perfect fit for what we do. I think we like receivers that block more. I think we like bigger receivers, but we're finding a way to make it work. But everybody on that Niners offense just kind of slots in nicely.
I'd agree with that. I think that's a fair point of saying. It's certainly the Rams had a player model type at receiver that they looked for, and that doesn't quite fit to necessarily dimension Lock, but Lockett's just so good in what he brings and the elements he brings that it's worth offsetting, and you can still find a way to work it through this offense, especially if you have the other guys in place that can make that happen.
Let's see here. Roy Froelich, thank you for the $5 Canadian. Do you think Adams' return will have a positive impact on Diggs's play?
Well, can we first acknowledge with Diggs? He was fighting through injury last week, and your safety situation is in a place right now. Love was fighting through injury. You didn't have Adams back yet. You probably didn't want to try to trust Jarek Reed out there for a full game with a guy like Dalton, who could maybe trick that kid with just some simple eye movement of the head to get back to a backside play. He went out there and did his best to get out there and keep going, but Diggs was probably nowhere near 100% in this game. And I think that his not playing necessarily good in this contest, and I know he's not been impactful throughout the year so far, but I think that that's a little bit of what's kind of caused this to happen. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think that it's going to help, can't hurt Adams, and I think it's certainly there hasn't been a good baseline set so far here, Roy. So it's like there is nowhere to go but kind of up from the safety play to begin this year so far.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any kind of a direct impact, but I think Adams being there will have a positive effect on everybody in its own way.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed. Very much agreed.
Let's see here. The Snail, thank you for the $2. Think waving Thompson means Tavon signing. Well, the thing is, we're using receivers relatively little right now, so we can rock with 4 receivers for a little bit if we need to. So I'm wondering if maybe it's another position.
Yeah, it's a tough prediction to make here, Snail, because it could mean just there's other things. We want to get an extra lineman in here. We want Jason Peters active, and so we're gonna have Thompson out for that. So we have the extra lineman in there because our linemen are getting lean and light. I mean, it could as much mean that. But they did have Tavon come in for a workout. Gino's been banging that drum and trying to get him in the house. And I'll say this as a third point of this, and we've noted it multiple times over, going on multiple years now. The punt return unit for your Seattle Seahawks is an ailing part of a very strong special teams unit. And it's the one part that you just have not found an answer for in recent years that's really worked as far as from in-house. And Tavon Austin, not really the best of receivers, but absolutely a guy that, can give you the punt return game. And also, Brendon, the one nice thing about Tavon coming here too is that he does give you a guy that I think could still give you some fly sweep kind of potential. If you can't trust him as a receiver, if we get down a little bit lean on the receiving core to go to that guy in that function, maybe there's a secondary value to him in signing him if you did.
Yeah, there's definitely some capacity he can help in, but how old is he now? Wasn't he 2013 draft?
So he'd be right about Gino's age, I think, right
Yeah.
about 32, 33, because they both were in that at the same time.
So I wonder how much of that stuff he can still do. That would be my only
Well,
question.
remember Hester at the end, even with us, was still pretty good in that aspect. Some of that punt return thing is when they get that good at that long at it, it's not only their ability to field the punts in a variety of difficult fashions and drive in difficult conditions, but their ability to, like an outfielder in baseball where they're going back on a fly ball and they get the last couple steps up to catch it as they're trying to make a throw, where they can really have that feel for it, where you have guys like Dallas back there where it's a little of that. He's the last second trying to run for it. This guy will be just, yeah.
Yeah, there is something to be said for that.
Yeah. So I think it's possible. It's possible out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to the 2024 draft stuff. We're now on to the defense. We're on to the second half.
Woo-hoo.
And there's definitely some interesting stuff going on the defense. We're going to start with the defensive line. I think it's pretty obvious we could use some help up there.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to go ahead and declare this class the class of the obese defensive tackle, because there are some guys in this class who have some serious, they don't have sand in their pants. They have dumbbells in their pants. They
That's
have,
true.
yeah, they have like adamantium in their pants. But I'm really impressed with a few of these guys. I really like what I'm seeing from a couple of them. And this first guy is PFF MVP. PFF thinks this guy should win the Heisman. They think he should win every award there is. They love him. I love him. I've been crazy impressed every time I've seen him. He's making splash plays as a 340-pound man on that defensive line. It's Tavondre Sweat of the Texas Longhorns. Generally speaking, when you talk about a guy like this who's like 340, they don't make plays. They set everybody else up to make plays, but it seems like in every game, he's doing something in the backfield. He's disrupting running plays individually. He's gotten to the quarterback once this year. There's something here beyond just I take up space in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But he's doing a great job taking up space in the middle. That Texas defense hasn't given up hardly anything on the ground yet. So I really like T'Vondre Sweat. If you're into the prototypical nose tackle type, I really like this guy. 2.7 yards per carry allowed by this run defense so far, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's taken big steps forward this first, what he looked like last year, as there was some thought he might enter the draft last year. And he just didn't look like this kind of prospect last season. He looked more in the 4th, 5th roundish range, where, he's going to highly be rotated out. Wasn't giving you a lot of impact down there. I think the two places that stand out, especially going back and watching the Alabama tape that they got that win on, is first off, he is the guy that is also, we're not seeing as much from one techs, even at the college level at times now, Brendon, which is the guys that truly can take on the double team and remain immovable when the double team hits them. Not that they lose a couple of yards and they're giving you a fight, but that the double team hits and he sinks down. And there was a couple snaps against Alabama where that happened, where he's got both the guys hitting him straight up. They get a good hit on him initially there, right? But he just, both his legs lock, and you see those feet stay right in the ground, stay immovable at that point, taking up the two blockers. The parts you talked about, that's the extra part that's jumped up to his game, is the pass rush. And it's come from his walkabout. He's gotten from a walkabout. He's not a blitzer kind of guy he's not a lean or dipper with 340, but what he's going to do is he's going to walk you back about. And that means put his hands up on your chest and just walk you back. And if you don't double team him in pass pro, he's going to beat that guard. And a lot of times this year so far, he's whooping their butts. And so what that then drives is now offenses at Texas there, or offense is going up against Texas, is now I got in pass pro probably when I don't want to all the time, constantly put my double teams down on this nose tackle, and everybody else gets singled up or rest on the line. If it's just your 4-man fronts going against the 5, right, Brendon? And so that does then help out. That's helped out the rest of that Texas, I think, defensive line to have some flourishing moments, because he does then attract so much attention. But it's a real benefit to the defense to have that. For us, I think Haloti Ngata is your kind of gold standard 340, but still can move like a beast and give you, like, he's not going to get into that range of things, but he is a guy I think starting to maybe push up into the cusp of into that maybe getting into first round range, second round range.
Yeah. Typically players like this don't go super high. Mozzie Smith kind of bucked the trend a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I don't know. I mean, it's early. It's way too early to make any assessment. I don't think Dallas is thrilled with the way that's going, because Arizona ran for like 220 on him.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know about that one right now. But you're right. He's got a chance. If he keeps going this way, T'Vondre Sweat has a chance to go way higher than I expected. But I really like what I'm seeing from this guy so far.
He might be able to give you, even though he's a heavier guy than Maze, he might, with that bull rush power he has, might be more of an upside guy with the pass rush. And he might be right in alignment with Maze on his plus run stuffing ability and all of that.
So that's Sweat. This next guy, kind of a similar boat, not as much with the pass rush, but Tyleik Williams of Ohio State has been great down in the trenches. He's another big guy, 330, another run stuffer type, but he's making plays as well. He's making plays in the backfield. He's got 3 tackles for loss already. He makes a lot. It seems like every game he's got like 6 tackles, 7 tackles, 5 tackles. It's not just the, oh, I got 2 tackles, but I took up all the space down there. No, he's taking up space, and then he's going to make the play. PFF loves him too. They have him graded one of the highest interior defensive linemen in the country so far. And on an Ohio State team that I think has been a little bit of a letdown so far this year, he's another one of these guys on their team that I think has stood out in a mostly positive way.
100% agreed. You well captured it with him. He does have that 0 tech, 1 tech size to him, but he goes hard in a way that 1 techs and 0 techs don't go. High motor, hustle. He will chase down backside plays. He will keep going after it. That's where he gets those tackle numbers to me, where other defensive tackles don't, and that he just stays constantly active, rallying to the ball. This is the type of defender that's going to appeal to a Coach Carroll, who's going to absolutely love him. Snyder's going to love the fact you have a guy at Ohio State, big program guy, with this kind of effort that he's giving. This isn't your 5-star guy that's getting by on, just the nature of his talent. He's hustling. There's not a wow factor to his game. Kind of got the slow burn power as opposed to the violent heavy hands power. It's more of it kind of works you out through the course of the play a little bit. He was an absolute, I think, monster and force in that Notre Dame game. A really fun game to watch. I think he had a sack. He was all over the place on the tape in that game. He's also, as a guy that we're looking at for more production this year, coming off last year, he's already matched his tackle and sack production from last season as we stand right now. So looking as a guy that truly is taking his steps forward, he's doing so.
Yeah, you don't really run the ball much on Ohio State this year so far, by the way, and he's a big reason why. I'd say a bigger reason than anybody else.
In some ways, I like him more than Hall. Between those two guys that are on that line, we've looked at Hall's
I
more
definitely
that
like.
this is more my flavor here with this guy than that.
Okay, so those are the two big boys who have really been impressing me so far. If you're still into this kind of player, and maybe the Seahawks have moved on. Maybe the Seahawks are like, no, we want small athletic guys like Jaron Reed to play nose tackle. But if you want a trash can full of dirt, I think those are two really good trash cans full of dirt to get.
They got some unusual wheels for the trash can of dirt that they are.
Yeah. Another guy who's popped on my radar positively so far would be Chris Jenkins of Michigan. This is a more defensive end type. He's a 275 on Sports Reference. But so far has had a really good year for Michigan. He's made some plays in the backfield. He's actually got an interception, which, hey, that's big man with ball. You love that. You love to see that.
Get those hands up, big man.
And Michigan's defense is as dominant as it pretty much always has been over the last several years. They stop the run really well. It's like 2.8 yards a carry, and he's a big part of that. And overall, I'm just pretty impressed, and I think he's moving up big boards.
I've liked this guy for a while. There's no doubt about it. If you got him in as a 3-4 end, he gives you really a fine defensive end as far as a run stuffer goes. He's just aware, active, strong hands, strong player at the point of attack. He's got enough mobility to get to it. I like the fact he's already got a sack this year in some hurries. I'm hoping that's the part of his game you're looking for him to come forward on from last year, where he was a good run defender last year too. But give me a little bit more as a pass rusher now, especially as we start looking at him as more of that 3-4 end like you talk about in this particular defense. Looking to see, can he do some more of the one gapping as opposed to just doing the 2 gap and holding the line and then throw the guy off and go find him. But tough as nails as a run defender. It's going to be hard for any defender at the NFL level. If we just talk about just a specialized role as a run defender and as a 3-4 edge, which I know that's not the sexiest thing to be looking to go get in a guy like you might take him in like 3rd round if he is only that. He has a chance to elevate himself, I think, in a 2nd or 1st round place if he can get the pass rush to a stage where people are like, oh, wait, no, this is a guy that can be a 7-8 sack a year guy from the inside. But as a run defender, no doubt about it, he brings the goods.
Yeah. By the way, he is 4th on PFF's list of best interior defenders in the country so far.
Let's go. I love Chris Jenkins, man. I would, he's one of my little, hey, we end up with Chris Jenkins. I'm going to be celebrating the hell out of that pick.
This last guy is a new one, and he's kind of my sleeper. This guy is not playing like a super duper star or anything like that, but he's starting to creep up into like the draftable area of the big boards. And he's stood out to me a little bit. It's another Duke player, so I guess. Yeah. It's Dwayne Carter of the Blue Devils. Currently projected to be like a.
With this guy, was there a player comp that jumped out to you watching him?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Okay. There's a guy that jumped out to me that's on the Seahawks even right now that I thought he looked very similar to. I think he reminds. Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No. Go ahead. Give me your comp first. I want to hear this.
Jaron Reed.
Okay.
Not as much pure power. So he's not going to be. Jaron Reed was like kind of insanely strong coming out of Alabama. So not quite to that place and level of Jaron, but still just reminded me a lot of Jaron.
Yeah. But for a guy who you could probably get in day 3 and maybe even late day 3, I think he's played pretty well so far this year. Duke, their defense is elite so far. They have the 4th best defense in the country, and he's a big reason why. The Duke's had a pretty good run defense so far. PFF likes him in both pass rush and run defense. They have him graded out fairly well. And I think that you could do a lot worse if you're picking in like even the 5th round.
Agreed. I think he's actually, in my opinion, right now, I put a third round grade off of a first look at him. I wouldn't say
Very
like or
nice.
highly third grade, but I put him right in the third. Maybe it's just because he does remind me so much of Jaron with just minus a little power. Jaron taken the second round, so I'm doing a little bit of advanced math, going okay, a little less power, but a lot like Jaron. He gets into offensive linemen really well. And then he works the offensive lineman off of his power and angles them a little bit, so he'll displace his hips and he'll sort of, it's like how Jaron Reed creates his pressures. Jaron doesn't do it with a, and he's gonna whip past you. Jaron's gonna get into you and then get it over to the rip move eventually after he's kind of worked you a little bit this way, or bring you over this way and try to kind of move you around that way. The pass rush is gonna kind of work itself on you over the course of a play a little bit, is kind of what I'm saying. But he does have some moves and things he can go to in his repertoire to kind of unleash on you. But the effort's always really high. Another part that you see with Reed, where you're going to get the maximum effort over the whole course of the play, playing and play out, be it run, be it against the pass. That's why I like him as a third round grade. I think he's a complete player with both aspects of the game. So he can be a 3-down kind of guy. And I do think that the pass rush is going to kind of come along with him because he has already shown a little bit of an ability to use those hands and work that in.
So yeah, that's your defensive line sleeper for me right now. I think if you're talking about somebody in like, although you don't even think he's going to be a day 3 guy, but if he's there, that's very, very appealing to me.
And there's still more of the year to definitely, look at with him on that. So it's definitely still early on with it, but I do think you talk about that defense playing good. He's a big part of that with what he's doing down that line.
Let's see here. Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for the $5. Do you think our blitz rate will go up with Adams on the field? You'd hope so.
You would hope so. Feed me more Seahawks. This is where we think that they're going to do this. We think that the plan in place with Adams, the changeover to the defense 2 seasons ago, that a lot of it, the head of that was to try to utilize Adams better. And the forefront of that, even more specific, was to utilize him better as a blitzer, more creatively than you were with the 4-3. And so I would say that that's what we would tend to expect to happen. But this does, as we always say with this goes down to, what is tended to be the kind of no-go zone for Coach Carroll, which is, I don't like blitzing. I don't like putting corners in a treacherous place. I don't like the openings it opens up on the back end. And so this does have to be a place to where Coach Carroll has to kind of change some of what he likes to do in order to accommodate this. Will he or won't he? That's the part. We only had a quarter of it last year with Adams in the new scheme. So we didn't have enough to go off of. And they didn't do any in the preseason before Adams went out there. Like, we haven't seen any in the preseason this time. So it's like, you haven't seen any kind of unveiling of it. We're just having to kind of guess blindly that we're going to see it.
I would expect it to go up some. It would be very weird if it didn't. Although we did do a decent amount of linebacker blitzing in that Panthers game, I thought. Brooks and Wagner both sent on the blitz a pretty decent amount. So we're already starting to ramp it up a little bit, I feel like.
I hope so. And you're not the only ones who said that, and that may be the case. I'd like to see the numbers on it, Brendon, because I also feel like he had 58 passing attempts. And so my intuition on this is that our blitz rate was about the same as it's always been in the last couple of seasons. You just felt like you saw it more because the guy had so many passing attempts. You did see it technically more. I could be wrong. I don't have the data to back that up. So that's just a feel thing in my gut coming off the game with that. It's no matter what, we both want to see it, and it's working when you use it.
Right. All right. So defensive line, I have a few stock down guys. Not really now against any of these guys. I just think they haven't really shown up in a super positive way yet. First guy for me would be Nazir Stackhouse of Georgia. PFF has not been too high on the season he's had so far. They have him graded out very middling. And Georgia's defense in general actually hasn't been as dominant as it's been in seasons past. So I still like him, but he's another one of these trash cans full of dirt. He's 320, 325. So you compare him to Tavondre Sweat and Tyleik Williams, I'm just not seeing it the same way I saw with them.
Yeah, pure nose tackle who just happens to disappear way too often in football games and is disappearing even more so now that he doesn't have some of the surrounding talent that he's had there previously.
Right. My next stock down guy is Leonard Taylor III of Miami. This one's kind of interesting. Part of the problem is he's never on the field because Miami is always winning by 50 points. I think they start every game with like a 28-point head start. and he's on the bench for the entire second half. But I would say, while he's been a really good pass rusher in the snaps he's gotten, his run defense, when you compare him to the other top defensive linemen in college football this upcoming draft, it seems like he's not as good of a run defender. But I feel like Leonard Taylor's going to ultimately be okay once he starts to play more. Like once we actually see him in a game that Miami doesn't run away with by the end of the second quarter.
Yeah, I think you capture why this is one of the more players at the head of this list that we need more tape on throughout the year to see what they do. Shout out to him as well, getting 2 interceptions
Mhm.
this year to begin things. Though that was against Bethune Cook. What
Yeah.
Bethune Cook?
Mhm.
Yeah, he does give you a bit of a difference from some of these other guys, because everybody seems to have the check mark box of run defender before we get to anything else in their game. And some of these defensive tackles, and with him, it's like, no, no, no. But he does have the pass rush, and he has been a
Yeah.
tremendous pass rusher with his skill set inside on that. He is a problem from the inside on what he brings on that. And that, I think, in that self in this class, Brendon, is going to rise him up, even if he does end up being kind of a poorly graded run defender. I think your points on that are valid. But because he is so unique in that, and because pass rush does carry the day, I think this is a guy that probably just pushed himself into like late second, third round range of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't shock me if he went in the first round once he gets
No,
going, because I do think he will get going at some point. But
yeah,
Miami needs to play a real team, so he actually has to stay out there for a while.
that's true. That would help. That would definitely help. Temple and Bethune Cook and Miami of Ohio.
Mhm. Last guy who stock down for me. This was the guy who was kind of the consensus number one D lineman before the season started. I
Hmm.
think he's moved down below Jerzan Newton now. Jerzan Newton's kind of the consensus number one dude. It's Mason Smith of LSU. He's bumped down to number two. Just hasn't been that effective or productive yet. LSU's defense, I feel like, has been a little bit of a letdown overall. Still a player that I like. Still a player who I think, as of right now, should be a first round pick, but not really feeling the excitement that I did earlier.
Yeah, he may be a guy that for me drifts down as we go down the board if he continues to look like this. He was playing on the edge 2 years back, and then at the start of last year, he was supposed to be moved inside to where it was going to be more naturally suited. Then he tore, I think, his ACL. So he is just back a year now, removed from the torn ACL. But in watching the tape on him, he just kind of is there. He's not having any impact. He's not doing anything. He's not really getting driven off the ball too far, but he's not really getting any push either. Nothing as much as a pass rush, 3 pressures so far through 3 games. I I'm I find myself just in a stay with him right now where it is. I think he is going to potentially drop if this continues with where his performance is. They played Grambling here. Now they had Mississippi State and Arkansas, so it wasn't as weak a schedule, but there's other
Yeah,
line, there's a lot of good defensive tackles in this draft. And if you aren't putting your best performance on tape this year in the draft you're heading into, you will dip and fall no matter what people thought. And a lot of it with him was projection, because he was the edge guy first before they're looking to kick him inside. So you don't have any production to go back on when he enters next year's draft and be like, well, he was good in 21. And you're like,
right.
yeah, they can't do that.
Yeah, so I don't know. He was considered like a top 15 guy before the season started. He's in a little bit of a free fall. By the way, PFF has his run grade at 39.1.
Mm.
So they really don't like what they're seeing from him.
And he's supposed to, yeah. I mean, that's understood. You're a edge guy going inside. Maybe that's the place you go down on. But then you better be like Taylor, where you're bringing the pass rush. Then I can expect an outside guy going in that's going to lose a little bit in the stopping the run. But you should be quicker now inside there, though, too. You should be able to take advantage of that in there, especially him being a bit of a bigger guy to match that. But it's not there.
Yeah, that's all I had for defensive line stuff. Anything stand out to you that I missed?
Zerzan Newton was the guy that,
Mhm.
I think his stock's been
Auburn.
just yeah, I think he's been maybe a little bit of a dipper guy. I don't think he's
Oh,
fallen out of the.
Illinois. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Auburn.
Oh yeah, the Illinois guy. I think he's been a bit of a slight dip. I think he still is a first round guy, but rather than being looked at as maybe a top 10 kind of pick guy, I think he's gone down just a tiny bit
Yeah.
of a hair. You
Yeah,
know,
I think he's playing fairly well. That Illinois defense is not good though. Like they're missing Witherspoon and Sidney Brown, and there was that other defensive back they lost. Like it's not a good defense is the thing.
it's hard when you lose that many. It's like Georgia. You're going to lose that many guys to the NFL, and you were playing that good. It's going to be it's going to be there's going to be a dip. Even if you're a stocked up 5-star program, it's still going to be a dip. There's going to be a time to have to recalibrate and go through. Sidney Brown, by the way, 82 PFF grade to start his career.
Yeah, looking
Not
good.
looking too bad. Not looking too bad. Tyler Davis, Clemson. One of the few guys out there that is kind of measuring up on that Clemson defense with what we thought coming in. He's got a great rip move, flexible defensive lineman, gives you a little bit of everything in there. I've liked how he's looked here to begin things.
Yeah. I like him better than Oro Horo. He's been kind
Yes.
of on a milk carton so far.
Quiet. Very quiet. Yeah, he's a milk carton and dusty milk carton. We don't know where he's
Yeah.
been and haven't seen him in weeks, months.
I wonder how many people out there even get the milk carton reference anymore. It's been a while since they've done that, isn't it?
Oh, I have a ton of references that I can already feel at times when I say it on the stream, Brendon. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of dated. I can't say that anymore. It doesn't apply. They don't know what I mean. They're like, where's that? You know.
All right. So now
Like
we're
when I
gonna
say
move along.
phone booth, if I say
Yeah,
phone
phone
booth, it's like
booth.
that one gets me in trouble. I feel like I get a lot of
Yeah.
blank stares on that one. That used to
Canary
be
in the
such a
coal
good
mine.
one. Canary in the coal mine. They used to be so great. Like I don't want to retire them. They're like they still apply so well.
Yeah, can't jump over a phone book. People don't know what a
Yeah.
phone book is
Oh no.
anymore.
It's like a book. What? Was it a thick book? No. I mean, you can't jump far. Huh?
Okay, so now we've got linebacker. And I think all of our linebackers are in contract years.
Mm-hmm.
So we may be looking at a whole new linebacker room next year. We'll see. Literally everybody could be moving on.
Chat's killing me on the Newton. I must have watched one of the. I didn't check out the Penn State game, so maybe he was owning it in that one. That's my
Yeah,
bad.
I mean, again, his numbers are pretty decent. His number individually, it seems like he's playing pretty good. It's just like I said, Illinois went from the best defense in the country last year to I don't even think they're average this year.
Yeah, and he is. I was still, for record, still at least a very minimum first round pick. So
yeah.
We'll see.
So linebacker, I got some stock up guys here. It's not really any of the top dogs. We've got quite a few people starting to creep on up here, which is nice because I think it's probably a position where you would hope you can take care of it in the mid rounds.
Yeah,
if possible.
absolutely. Yeah.
So my first guy is Junior Colson of the Michigan Wolverines. That Michigan defense is killing it like they pretty much always do. And Junior Colson has been at the head of it. He's been one of the big reasons why. He's had a really nice season, made some plays in the backfield. I'm liking what I see from Junior Colson. I think he started at like the 3rd or 4th round area. Now he's starting to come on up a little bit.
Yeah, I see him as a guy probably going to rise up too, and when it's all said, in at least second roundish range. 6'3", 247, ideal linebacker kind of for the modern era because he's got that size. How many of these guys the last few years have we looked at that are 225 on their listed weight, right? Not on the fake weight, but like listed weight. And so he looks at, he's got the size, smart player, rarely confused, rarely misdirected. You always see him in kind of the right place, right spot in his pursuit. He is a snap-on tackler, meaning that when he gets his hands on you, he's taking you to the ground. And he has got adept technique, smooth as they come in that, easy as they come in that part. It's not an issue for him at all. Very capable blitzer as well. He hasn't been the most efficient in this respect this year, if we talk about tracking him this year in that part of things. So, I'd like to see that maybe dial up a little bit more as we go along this year, but he is a good blitzer watching him on tape and his feel for how to time things up at the snap as a linebacker coming and where to attack and how to get skinny through a hole. He's got some of that stuff to him on top of having some really good quickness.
Yeah, and it seems like he's pretty good in coverage too, or at least has the potential to be good in coverage. I'm seeing that more with him than I am with some of these other guys who we're going to talk about in a little bit here. But yeah, Junior Colson becoming one of the better linebackers in this class, I think.
I think so. I see him as a potential first-round talent at this point because, like you say, with the coverage skills he brings, he's a very complete guy, and he's got the NFL size, and he's going to test remarkably well. He'll probably be a 4.55-ish guy, on his 40. It won't be maybe like lightning, but be a good. And for 6'3", 247, that'll do.
All right. So Junior Colson, stock up. Also stock up for me, although this guy does have some measurement issues, apparently. It's Cedric Gray of the UNC Tar Heels. He's been big time for that defense so far. He's had some monster games. He's been doing some pass rush stuff. He's been making plays in the backfield. For UNC defense that isn't great, but they've already been in some dogfights this year. He's had to come up big, and for the most part, I feel like he has. He's kind of small. He's one of these 225 guys that we talk about.
So
And
they got him
apparent,
listed to like 245 on the
huh.
230. Well, no, they got him listed 235. You're right.
Yeah, they
That's
got
right.
yeah, I don't know. Looking at him, he looks small to me.
I think
And
that's fair.
apparently he's not that fast, but that could be an old 40 time. Like somebody in my comments, I can't remember who it was, said he ran a 4.73,
Okay.
but that could easily be out of date. Like I remember Derek Young ran a 5 second 40 until he got to like his senior year, and then suddenly he was pounding out 4.4.
Yeah.
So if he's reasonably fast, I really like what I'm seeing from him so far.
I really do too. That's why I'm kind of wondering with him as well. I really like the tape we're seeing is he's just a good all around linebacker. He does have 6'3" size. And so if he is at 225, unlike maybe these 5'11 sub 6 foot guys that really are going to struggle to get up to 235, 240 and carry that much weight, I think he can potentially carry that much weight down the line. Last year's production was insane. 144 tackles, 6 passes defensed, a sack, and 3 interceptions. This year, 34 tackles, 2 passes defensed, and a sack and a half. So he's looking like he's going to put another really good year of production together there. I thought he looks on tape pretty fast and athletic to me on tape. Maybe he isn't test well, but another guy that maybe just isn't about how he tests, but how he does look on tape because it doesn't look like it's an issue for him. And on top of it, he diagnoses really quickly. So that's another one of those gives him a little bit of another head start step on things because he so fastly figures out what's happening on there. I'm going to put a name out there that's not exact comp, but a little bit of the vibes I got off of him was a little bit of the Navarro Bowman vibes
Mm,
from the Niners back in the day a bit when watching him.
okay, I can dig that. I mean, Bowman was really good before he destroyed his knee. So some people may not remember that. That was a long time ago now.
It was. It was. It's just the way he read and reacts to stuff, sort of takes on blocks, feel for the game, the diagnose, and just on top of everything. It does in a lot of ways just kind of remind me of Bowman while still having some physicality that he brings on top of it, you know. And it was shades of it. Not a direct comp, but just some echoes and vibes.
All right. So our third linebacker that has stood out to me in a positive way so far this year, I think this is a new one. I don't think we talked about him previously. It is Danny Stutzman of the Oklahoma Sooners.
Oklahoma Sooner.
This guy's been everywhere, man. He's averaging over 10 tackles a game. He's got 8 tackles for loss. So he's averaging 2 tackles for loss a game. He's got 2 sacks. He's got a pick six. He's kind of doing it all for a defense that has been very good, although they haven't played great competition yet. PFF adores him. PFF thinks he's one of the best linebackers in the country so far.
Hmm.
In fact, yeah, they have him third right now, and the 2 guys in front of him are small school guys. So I'd say Danny Stutzman, as of right now, because of some of the physical limitations there, he is a little bit of a smaller guy, probably not like a first or second round guy, but he's starting to move up towards that third round, and he could maybe even get higher than that by the time this is all said and done.
It's very possible. I do think he's a guy that has a chance to rise up, but he is kind of in that slotted spot that I think you mentioned when I look at him is where I see him. He's a good read and react linebacker, excellent pursuit skills, perfect angles that he takes to track things down across the field. You know, he's not going to waste his motion or space through there. He's going to navigate the waters really well. A lot of those linebackers can get caught up in the wash at times. Um, I think he is, for the most part, about as good as he is against the run against the pass. He's been a little bit better against the run this year, but on tape, he makes plays in both areas of things to my eyes. Where I really like him and where I think he distinguishes himself from other linebackers we've looked at so far here is he might be one of the better ones at bouncing and just getting off blocks. He's both got ability to take them on heads up and then get off of them or slide off of them either way. And he can kind of go to one or the other based on what he's feeling the lineman trying to do with him. And he continually, part of what gets so many of these tackles is he just gets off those blocks so naturally.
So yeah, he could be kind of like this draft's who was the Owen Popoe, the guy last year,
Owen Popo,
who
yeah,
slowly
Auburn kid.
crept up as the year went on, and we ended up both really liking him by the end.
Yeah, very much could be. There's this guy puts a lot, continues to keep the tape better and better. If he can round out that full skill set he's got, he might be a guy to jump up in that spot. I think you mentioned the size things that we want to look at with him, and then this will be a guy that you're going to look a little closer at where his testing numbers go when we get to that spot. This is one of those. Not all prospects do you need to do that with, but some of mine, I want to see where he's at on his 40, and let me see the 3 cone. Let me see some of the agility and stuff for what he brings on that.
All right. Last guy, this is another sleeper guy, somebody who he's not the best, but I would really like to get him in the later rounds. He's starting to creep up into that 6th, 7th round area. It's Jalen Ford of the Texas Longhorns. Had a couple good games. I think he showed up pretty good against Alabama in particular. PFF really likes what he's doing so far. Having a nice season so far. 3 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, doing some things in coverage. Last year he had 4, by the way. So the thing is, this guy's a little bit small. So small, I wonder if he converts to safety at the NFL level. He's one of those. But either way, I really like his ball hawking. He's shown that he's somebody who finds the ball in coverage and takes it away pretty routinely.
He does. It's on for him in coverage. When it's off for him in coverage. The consistency angle is the tough part to pop up with him, where he gives you one good snap and then one what the hell's going on snap. When it comes to run game instincts and stuff, I think a transition to safety very well maybe in his future. He's got a little bit of the Aaron Curry-itis going on with him on just he's gonna misdirection. We just talked about the last guy, Stunsman, having great ability to, and a couple of these linebackers have great ability to not get twisted and turned the other way. He takes the cheese a lot and gets sent in different directions where he allows the offense to kind of manipulate him a little bit. And he's got some natural physicality to him on that. He is listed 6'3", 240, probably more like 6'1.5", 6'2", 230, 229-ish. But yeah, I'm not really high on this guy. I know he's got fairly good scores right now, but I don't like how inconsistent, because when it goes bad with him, it goes really bad. Snap to snap. When it's really good, it's really good, and it's splashy. You know, those interceptions are legit. When he's locked in, it can look like, I just want to see more of him locked in.
Right. But again, this is like a 6th round, 7th round guy.
Yeah.
So if you can get a guy like that, that's kind of the perfect 6th round, 7th round guy, a flyer.
No, I might even take him in the 5th at that point. You know, I mean, for a coverage linebacker that you could throw on the field to maybe be, once you get him consistent on, that can give you that upside. I mean, there's a spot for that on the field.
All right, so we got a few stock down linebackers now. Couple of these guys were the big guns to start the season, and I just haven't seen a lot from him. The first guy being Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Clemson. Just hasn't really stood out to me all that much. That Clemson defense overall has been, I think, a bit of a disappointment. I think that we're seeing that he's not very good in coverage. I know PFF has graded him horribly in coverage so far, which is definitely a big letdown. Not bad, but I think Barrett Carter's been a little bit better at the very least. I can say that. That's a 1-to-1 comparison because they're playing next to each other.
Yeah, agreed. No, I totally agree. And you worry about him as well, not having good coverage instincts where he's already undersized. So, you know, at the pro level, if you've got some instincts that are problematic already, and then you're not able with the length or size to get to certain balls or into places of certain window throws. I think it's a big worry right now as it stands with Trotter, looking at him at the next level.
Yeah, that size thing, we already talked about that before, but this guy is like 210 apparently. This guy's
I'm
like
worried he's
safety size.
5'9". I'm worried he's 5'9.5" when he goes to the combine and tests out. I'm legit worried that Trotter's going to be that small.
Yeah, still some good stuff, but in the modern NFL, I'm wondering how well this works. Like, you can be small, but I don't think you can be this small.
You can't. One guy that might help his case, who's balling out of control right now with Minnesota, who we both did like, was Ivan Pace. And maybe if there's a way for Ivan Pace to make it happen, this guy can make it happen. He is a good pass rusher, and he can bring that part, which was what really helped Ivan Pace, I think, as much as anything, get where he's got with Minnesota. But he's been a pretty good player for them overall in his first year. So maybe that's the one thing that can give him a bit of an opening. But even still, I think he's definitely dropped as far as this year's start.
I liked what he did against FSU a little bit more. I think he's starting to trend in the right direction. I liked what he did against the Seminoles, but
his tackling
I
in
need to
that
see
game
more.
It's just that the tackling part, because you come back to, again, the
Yeah.
undersized guy with the arms, where you go, well, does he have long enough arms to wrap around some of these bigger ball carriers? You get FSU is going to have some ball carriers that are a little more NFL sized, and kind of slides off them. It has a couple of broken tackles in that game where you go, ooh, buddy, come on, those are exactly the kind of middle linebacker tackles I'm going to need you to make it the next level.
Let's see here. Next up, I'm also a little bit down on Tommy Eichenberg. Not anything really critically bad, but he hasn't been in the backfield as much. There doesn't seem to be anything too stand out about his game. His run defense grade's actually bad on PFF. It's like 53.1. I'm not like super down on him or anything, but we were thinking about this guy as a first round pick at one point. Based off what I've seen in the first month, I'm not really feeling like that's gonna hold.
I think he's kind of far from that at this point. Third round and onwards, I would say the Notre Dame tape. I mean, it wasn't good. It
Mhm.
wasn't good. There's no other way to put it. Like, that's a game where you need him stepping up there for you as a kind of a leader on that defense. And, he didn't. They snuck out with that game, but I don't think I came out very underwhelmed by him in that game, just from what I saw. 4 total tackles, 1 hurry, 36 defensive grade from PFF coming out of that game.
Wow, I didn't know
Disappeared.
that.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah. 29 as a run defender in that game. 29 run defense grade.
Yeah,
So
and he's got Tyreek Williams in front of him. That should
yeah,
be like
and
every
Hall,
linebacker's dream.
and Hall,
Yeah.
Tyreek and Hall, and they've got, I think, even an edge rusher, right? Don't they have that? The other guy is an edge rusher too. There, that's not bad.
Uh
Um, yeah,
Tumu Latu.
right, exactly.
He's
So,
very good. Yeah.
see, you kill those 10-syllable names, man. That's why
Mhm.
I'm laughing about the baby thing. You got those other, but I think he's drifting and sliding. There was times where he had some shades of Kuechly to him at times last year, looking at the tape, but nowhere near as consistent, nowhere near as dominant. Just you could see some certain snaps where, ooh, that kind of reminds me a bit of like how Kuechly would play that. But Notre Dame game, that was your toughest competition this year. You played pretty good in the other games. You played okay in the other games, but then you get the toughest competition. Where did you get exposed in that one, or is that just a blip on your radar? We'll see.
Final guy who I'm a little stocked down on right now is Jamon Dumas Johnson of Georgia. I like the other Georgia linebacker a little bit better, Smael Mondon Jr. I don't know, just haven't seen much from Dumas Johnson. Part of it is that Georgia's playing non-competitive games, so he's probably sitting on the bench by the third quarter a lot, but just not really a big impact so far. PFF hasn't liked him. He's got 10 tackles in 4 games. I don't know. I'm not really feeling it.
10 tackles on 120 snaps.
Mm,
There's not, I mean, he's got trigger quickness. He's a good blitzer. He's got some plus skills in coverage, but so far this year, and I'll admit, I haven't watched a lot of the Georgia tape with Tennessee Martin or Ball State or
yeah.
UAB. So I haven't deep dived too much into him, but it has been a slow start. Once he gets going against more of the upper end competition, I think we'll get a little bit more of a feel for him on this one.
Mhm.
Much like with that other Georgia kid we were talking about.
Mondon, yeah. I like him a little bit better, I'll say that.
I do too as well.
Uh, anything else rattling around in the linebacker core as far as college football goes for you? That's what I had.
Nothing up or down. Question for you is Oldolofi. I'll let you do the names. The Washington kid.
Oh,
Has he done anything for his stock
oh,
so far?
not to my knowledge. Let me take a quick look here. I know who you're talking about. He is good. I like him, but I haven't gotten the impression that he's considered somebody that's going to go particularly high in the draft. Yeah, I'm not seeing him on the aggregate, so the country doesn't seem to really know about him yet. I did want to ask you one thing though, actually. There's been a new person at the top of the consensus big board for linebacker for a couple weeks now. It's Latu Latu of UCLA, who I think is an edge, but for some
Mhm.
reason the sites list him as a linebacker. Do you have any idea what's going on there?
He's an outside linebacker, so they call those edges outside 3-4 outside linebackers, so they turn him into 3-4 on
Yeah.
the deal with it. So
Yeah, I don't think
um,
he's what we need, so I haven't really been looking at him too much.
absolutely a 3-4 outside. But they'll just put him as a linebacker because reasons. But he's good. He creates pressure. He's gonna be a highly drafted guy. He's like the kid out of Washington that does the same kind of thing where they create real high pressure rates,
Right.
snap for snap.
Mhm. Okay,
Trice.
so that's linebacker, and there's one position left that I've been keeping my eye on. It's safety. But to be perfectly honest, if we're being real here, with what this team has done with the contracts of Diggs and Adams, we're married to those guys for another year, pretty much.
And Love too, probably.
Yeah, probably Love. A Love you could get out of, but it depends on how he plays.
Right.
If he plays well the rest of the year, you're going to keep him. And we know this team loves Jarek Reed II. So I'm starting to wonder if the safety stuff is spinning our wheels a little bit because the circumstances make it hard. But this team has started to adopt a little bit of a BPA approach. Diggs and Adams will probably be gone in 2025.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't completely shock me.
It's possible, and there are
Hmm.
some good. This is a year where there will be good ones, where in recent years past, there have been somewhat of an underwhelming group.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm stock up on four guys. Let's just go ahead and run through them real quick. First guy I like is Tyler Nubbin of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. He is a ball hawk. He had two interceptions, including a big one in that first game against Nebraska to help win that game. That was a very, very tough game to gut out there, and Nubbin was a big reason why they did. His coverage grade is really, really good on PFF. It's like 90. So he is a deep safety for sure. He's going to be like a Quandre Diggs type, I think, where he's not much in run support, but he's excellent at coverage. And hey, we could use some of that. We're not too far away from needing some of that. So I like Tyler Nubbin.
I actually liked him a lot as a tackler and as a
Oh,
guy with
really?
a run defender. Yeah, he's to me the one of the rare. He's 6'2", 210, so he's a lot bigger size than you typically get out there at safety, and he is a grade A, Class A hitter as well. He will come up and absolutely decleat you, and he's another one like Cam would be, where Cam could just sort of hit you with a side glancing blow, which you had your kill shots from Cam, and then you had your glancing blows from Cam, but like where guys would still be getting up slowly and then hurt. If you go watch some of Tyler Nubin and what he's done out there on the field here, even go back to last year's stuff, he will absolutely leave a lot of guys slow to get up off the field after he hits him. But he comes up with picture perfect tackling technique in the run great when he comes up in run defense. Love what I saw. He's one of my early safety favorites right now in this draft from what I've seen from
Mhm.
his level of play. The one issue I have, I don't know if he's got quickness and I don't know if he's got speed. So I'm unsure about him in that part, but instincts and understanding how to play and just a good football player, yeah, he's got it on that. He's a good all around guy.
Yeah, so the combine's going to be interesting for him, but that's interesting. I'll look into that a little bit more because I got the sense that he was more of a Quandre Diggs type, and his run defense grade has been bad so far this year. But I'll take a look at that for
Yeah,
sure.
and it may be a bit dipped down this year, but it's they ask him to come up at times, and he's being asked to come up from free safety in the Minnesota scheme and actually make plays in the box,
Hmm,
which is
okay.
another unusual part. They also do. Remember when we were looking at Jordan Howden last year coming out, the Minnesota is one of those few teams in college football that do use the safeties interchangeably between free safety to strong safety, like purely in that role in that
Mhm.
way. So that's also where now he gets put in a lot of situations. Typical free safeties coming down won't be asked to come down the box. And so, okay, he comes down the box and misses a tackle. Yeah, you might technically dig him for that, but most free safety, like at the pro level, he's probably not going to be asked to do that as much in that
Right.
manner.
Right. So Tyler Nubbin, definitely stock up there. Second stock up guy for me would be Malachi Moore, one of the few bright spots on this Alabama team that looks very, very human this year. Don't know how the heck that happened, but I think Nick Saban's going to be getting the wheels ready to motor on out of there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, he doesn't like the NIL stuff. So,
Yeah.
what are you going to do there? He's not a big NIL guy, and that's, his kind of his thing, unfortunately. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But so far, he's been a really good all-around safety for Alabama. I think he's been, other than Turner, probably their best player on that defense.
Agreed.
I like what he's doing in run support. I like what he's doing in coverage. He's made a couple of big plays. He was big time for them in that kind of a season turnaround win that they had against what was it, Old Miss this
Hmm.
weekend. I
Yeah.
think he was big in that game. And yeah, I'm liking him as kind of an all-around safety. That would be a great fit for like a Fangio scheme.
Agreed. I think another guy a little bit like Tyler, where he's going to have a little bit of familiarity, being asked to do different strong safety stuff and free safety stuff. This is a little bit more of the normal model for some of these safeties coming out to a degree. I think Minnesota just runs it a little more full pure with those two guys than other programs, where they'll have their strong safety do a little slight free safety stuff and the free safety do a slight strong safety stuff. But I like him as an overall player because he's solid all the way down. I don't think he's got any bright, flashy skill to him, Brendon, but he is very fundamentally sound. You don't see him making a lot of mistakes on the football field. I like what I see from him right now. It looks to me like obviously depending on where he tests, maybe a third, fourth round kind of guy in that range.
That sounds about right. And I'd be happy to do that. Next stock up guy for me would be the USC one, Kalen Bullock. He is a They down in Texas, they call them turd blossoms, the flower that comes out of a turd, because
Mhm.
he's surrounded by some turds on that defense. Unfortunately, they are going to give up a lot of points this season, but he is good. Kalen
Mm.
Bullock can play, great ball hawk, already showing it off so far this year. He had a big interception in the Arizona State game that ended up getting pretty close. It was actually a very important play that he made last year. He was kind of it was almost Ed Reed like the way he was ball hawking. PFF loves him as well. PFF is very high on what he's doing in coverage. They've given him an 89 grade almost. So yeah, Kalen Bullock continues to be the guy that I thought he was going to be before the season started.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. Very few ball hawks out there at the safety position in recent years that have come through, and he does fit that. He fits that model. He is great in coverage. He's got long arms. He blocks out the sun in coverage at times. He's so tight and just so big. You don't see the ball. You have no angle to see it coming in, and that's when he's not making the play on the ball just to steal it right from you as a receiver. Um, I do think his run defense leaves a lot to be desired for me. I think that he's not the most consistent tackler. I don't think he's the most, willing of guys up in the game especially as a run defender, but he's a free safety to me as well. I think
Yeah.
he is more into that pure, this isn't a Fangio kind of guy. This is more of a pure free safety type to me. So that's, as we were talking about again, just that other guy a second ago, Newbin, it's okay because you're not going to ask those guys typically to have to come up and make a lot of plays around the line of scrimmage. But that would be the one mark. I still do put him up as one of the better guys in this class right now at the safety position, though.
This last guy is a little bit of a sleeper who's slowly started to get attention. He's up in like the 6th round of the aggregate now. Jaden Hicks of Washington State. Kind of come out of nowhere here and he's put together a really effective season so far for a WSU defense that is decent. He's been rushing the passer a pretty decent amount, actually. They're using him in that role a decent amount. He's been effective in it. He's got great coverage numbers. Good all-around safety, it looks like we've got here. More coverage, I think, than anything else, but I'm liking what I see from Jaden Hicks.
Yeah, good player. I'd call him a football player. He's not going to be necessarily a good tester, but a guy that knows how to play the game and understands how to get to the right space at the right time. The coverage grade numbers I wonder a little about because going watching the Wisconsin game, like he gave a touchdown up in that game and they didn't credit him for it, and it was obviously on him in the back corner of the end zone. And so I was a little bit like, I don't get how he got to 86 on that. But he was all around the field. He was all over the place, usually close to around to the ball, in the right kind of place you want your safety to be in. But I think he's a solid player and a guy that could be a middle round guy that could be an interesting cat to add into the safety group. I wouldn't want to take him in the 2nd or 3rd roundish area of things, but a little bit later on, I'd be okay with.
Yeah, as of right now, he's like a 6th round guy. Like that would be amazing to get a guy like this, I think, in the 6th round.
Agreed. And I think he is going to test into that 4, 6, 5-ish range, probably as a 40.
Right. A couple of stock down guys. Nothing too bad, honestly. Nothing terrible going on at this position. But Jack Howell of Colorado State, just because he acted on the code red that the Colorado State coach gave him and the rest of the Colorado State defense in that Colorado game.
Right.
They need to have a trial about that one.
Yeah, they do. We do. We got to have a war crime trial for that one.
Yeah. But he isn't playing too great so far this year. He was one of the guys who was kind of a mid-round sleeper before the season started, and so far he's just kind of been average, forgettable.
Yeah, he's an undersized former 3-star recruit guy, so kind of an overachiever type that you're looking to, okay, where you step. I think the Colorado game was an interesting one to track him on. He got graded pretty well in the game, did okay in the game, but I still do think he's probably sliding into more of that undrafted rookie free agent side of things more than anything else. And yeah, that Colorado State, especially that Hunter hit, was just ridiculous.
Right. And the other stock down guy for me is Cooper DeJean, and it's not really anything wrong with the player. I guess he's playing cornerback for Iowa this year, so it's going to be really hard to evaluate him, especially if you're thinking about taking him in the 1st round if he ultimately projects to safety at the NFL level. So I don't know what to think anymore.
They use him weird too, where like you watch the last year snaps from him, and he had 5 picks last year. He's another guy you might qualify as a ball hawk if you just let him go play free safety. To me, he is just a free safety, but they have him up in the last year's tape. They would bring him up in the slot. they would bring him up as a linebacker, kind of like a will linebacker at points in times where he's up and he's so slight, and then he just gets crushed inside down there around the box. And it's hard to understand what it is that I was attempting to try to do with him there, because they're not putting him in a good place to me to succeed. He's a real fun player, quick and fast, but not oftentimes put in the greatest of positions, as evidenced by like what you just talked about this year with putting him in corner. I don't even think slot corner is the right spot. He should be a single high safety over there, or free safety over the top.
All right, so that's all I had for safety stuff. Anything else stand out to you that I didn't get to?
No, I think that you
Okay.
indeed covered most of the guys. We had the one other guy in Miami, but I think he's remained probably in about the same place as far as
Kitchens?
that's right.
Yeah,
Kitchens.
Cameron
I still
Kitchens.
do
Yeah,
like
he's been
him.
good.
I still do like him quite a bit. So, but no,
I
other
do
than
too.
that, I think that's been about it.
The Snail, thank you for the $2 super chat. I wouldn't think Hicks is coming out this year. Maybe. This NIT thing has made things a little more difficult to decipher at times. So that's possible.
Yeah, and I mean he's got some room to grow. I think in certain
NIL.
parts. NIL, yeah. I mean
Yeah.
that's it's certainly going to push certain things to certain places. I think the thing that could incorporate that too, to his point on that, Stanley, your point would be maybe the safety class might be a bit deeper than recent years, where a guy like Jaden, who if it was last year's draft, is maybe looked in more into the fourth roundish range, where this year it goes more sixth, seventh round, where give it a year and he might have more of a chance to get it,
Yeah.
especially if he improves his stock a bit higher up on the board.
Yeah. I said NIT by accident. I don't know why I said that. It's NIL.
Oh, we know. I do the same thing. We know what you meant.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really about it for the college football stuff. I think we covered a lot of ground here and did a lot of really good work, but that's our early impressions.
Some good guys here, some really
Oh
good
yeah.
guys to look at. And what's nice here is what we're going to need, Brendon, going forward, linebacker, defensive tackle, defensive end. These are the places that appear to be particularly strong here in this upcoming draft. Left guard, looking at guard, we're going to need that, or right guard, another position that looks pretty good here early on
Yeah.
across the board. So
I think people are falling in love with Anthony Bradford. They would be pretty sad if we passed him over.
I'd get that. But I don't think Anthony's a left guard for sure. I think he's a right guard going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And so it does at least to there. But you also, as we've seen this year, getting some backup guys, even if you take a guy that's highly drafted, if it's being driven by value, Brendon, if you have Bradford starting, but we put a third round pick on a right guard and Bradford beats him out, and that guy's sitting on the bench, and that guy can occasionally fill in for your left guard if you need to call upon him. I don't think that that's the worst strategy to take when it comes to an offensive line. We've learned about the value of having some depth here these last couple of games.
The Snail, thank you for the $2. He's only a sophomore, is why I say that. Yeah.
Okay.
The aggregate has him listed as eligible to enter the draft this year, so he could. Maybe he won't, but he
Must be a
can.
red shirt sophomore then, huh?
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah, you're right, Sam. We saw this last year impact in a way we've never seen it happen before, and that's part of the reasons why this draft is why we're doing this too, folks. Is that this is probably due to be one of the strongest drafts we've seen in at least a decade, if not longer than that.
Yeah.
Because NIL pushed so many guys over to this year's draft who usually in any other given NFL year would have gone into the draft, started their clock ticking as fast as they could to get themselves to their next contract. And NIL doesn't do that anymore. So this does mean that it's going to be a real good draft.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I think then we are done here. So, Brandon, thank you for coming out tonight and doing this with me. I think we did some great work tonight. I'm
Oh yeah,
really
brother.
happy with the way this college football season's going so far, honestly.
Me too, man. We're looking at these positions that from quarterback to guard to linebacker to, these are the positions looking good and right. Players taking strong draft players. So it's if we're going to need some guys to get us over the hump and have young guys who can come in and play strong from the jump because they've had that extra year in college, like maybe one of these NIL guys, where they're a little more established, a little more finished product coming out. We have the guys that I think that we're going to look to start to target to help us get us there. If we can't find a free agency, if we can't find it via a trade.
All right, so everybody in the crowd, thank you for coming out tonight and enjoying it. Thank you to everybody who's watching this on video on demand later. I think that this is the kind of stream that might, as we get to the end of the season, maybe people will start looking back at trying to determine what's going on with the draft. But thank you to everybody who's already got part of their focus on this upcoming draft. You always got to have one eye on what's going on over there.
You never start up too early, Brendon. The more we know, the more better we'll be informed by the time we get to draft.
So tomorrow we will be reconvening for the pregame versus the Giants, the Monday Night Football game against the Giants. So we'll be seeing each other again very soon, Brandon. So thank you for coming out tonight, and I can't wait to do it again tomorrow.
My pleasure, man. I'll see you back in 24.
And thank you to everybody who showed up tonight. I hope you guys are ready to do it all over again in a month. We will reconvene to take a look at the state of the college football draft prospects in, I'd say, probably either 4 or 5 weeks, in all likelihood, sometime near the end of the month of October.
Sounds good. We'll be back at it.
All right. So there's only one thing left to do. There's only one way to send you guys off. It's the way we send you guys off every time. But if we stop doing it, people will forget. People are just going to,
that's what
they'll
do.
lose track of it. That's how it goes. So
in this day and age, you got to remind them.
Yeah, got to remind them. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to hit it off. And then tomorrow we're back looking at the present. We're back looking at what's right in front of us. So, has to be said, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.